Okay, you ready? Okay, I'm gonna call the. Yep. I didn't even need to do that. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna call the Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting for March 25th to order. This meeting is held in person as well as via Zoom. You can dial in 1-719-359-4580. Webinar ID 863-8055-0264. Okay, let's start with the roll call.
Commissioner Connerton. Here. Commissioner Cowan. Here. Commissioner Sipperly. Here. Chair Waller.
Here.
Commissioner White. Here. Commissioner Houghton.
Here.
Commissioner Guyman.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you. Any conflicts of interest for the items on the agenda tonight? Okay, seeing none, let's go to receipt of the minutes from February 25th meeting. Commissioner Sipperly.
I move to approve the minutes from February 25th, 2025 as written.
Okay, and Commissioner Connerton.
I'll second.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second. Any comments on the minutes, additions, deletions? Okay, I guess we'll call to a vote. Okay, call to the vote. It's already here.
It passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next is comments from citizens appearing for items not on the agenda. Okay, seeing none, we'll move right into our agenda. The first item is planning file 07-25, variance at 401 North River, Hotel 1888 signage, 1888 signage. Emery.
Emery Ellingson, Community Development. I'll be presenting the planning file and sharing my screen. Do that well or no?
I think it's as good as it gets.
Yeah, okay. Okay, well, anyway, so this is planning file 725 for 401 North River Avenue. And this is a sign variance for the Glenwood Hot Springs. So here. Sorry. Anyway, I'll just continue. I have it on full screen on here. So anyway, so the request is for consideration of variances for relief from sign code for attached signage, and it is for number and illumination. And so again, subject property, 401 River Avenue. It's a rather large property. And then it's located, you can see where that pin is in the commercial zoning district. And so that's that shade of purple right there. And so the first variance is consider approval of a variance to exceed the limit of 2 wall projecting or roof signs, 1 per building frontage. So number of signs for a building frontage. That is the first action item, and staff has recommended approval with findings and conditions. The second item is consider of approval for a variance to allow a wall sign on a side of a building that does not abut a street, parking area, or other area. So basically, allow a sign on a part of the building that's not considered a building frontage, and so location. And then the third item is consider approval of a variance for relief to allow an internally illuminated sign within the downtown core. And so that's type of illumination. I'll get more into that later in the presentation. And staff has recommended approval of this item as well with the findings and conditions in the staff report. So for starters, any variance has 7 criteria, all of which must be met, visualized here. And then I also included, the point of a variance application is the applicant must show a hardship. And code defines a hardship as a condition by which the property in question cannot be put to reasonable use. And so as you're considering all the variances and the application, keep in mind what is reasonable use on this property for signage. And then also take into account that every section of code has an intent, the reason why it's there, what it's looking to do. So staff report mentioned, and I'll talk about in my presentation a little bit, a couple times, about the intent of sign code, what it intends to do. And that's the start of every code section before it gets into the specific requirements. So first, again, is to exceed 2 wall projecting or roof signs per building frontage. And so the definition of building frontage is that horizontal dimension on the side of a building, and it has to abut a street, a parking area, or other area open to the general public. So for purposes of this application, that yellow line is what's considered building frontage. And so the way code reads, you could have 2 signs along that entire frontage for a building of this size. And that's approximately with 490 feet linear dimension as you go from end to end. And so again, that's the request of the variance. There are a number of existing signs on the property. So these are all 8 that are currently there, 5 of which are on that south frontage. So if you have existing signage, it can stay there. But if you want to do any new signage, it has to come up to current sign code, which as code reads, you would get 2 signs. So if the Hot Springs were to bring this building up to code, they'd have to remove on that front, the south side, they'd have to go from 5 signs down to 2. So that's the way that would work. So this is just a quick run through of the existing signage on the building, and they've been installed at different periods of time. This one is one of the older ones. This is on the southeast corner. This is a projecting entrance sign, which was approved in 2024 with the variance. This is also another entrance sign on that walkway, which was also part of their 2024 variance. These are, on the left are the 2 existing signs that are subject to being replaced with this variance application. And then on the right, there are the replacement signs. And then also you can see for the sign area on the one above, which reads Glenwood Hot Springs, that sign is getting smaller. While on that portico entryway area, the signage area is getting larger. It's going to be in 2 separate sign areas. And then on the back, on the north side, there's an existing wall sign up top, which also gets smaller. And then this sign is also changing. So again, this particular variance item is to allow more than 2 wall signs on a frontage, which they are looking at replacing 4. So here are the criteria. Staff finds for approval. Here are all the different individual criteria. The main points for finding for approval is that the subject property is one of the largest ones in the commercial zoning district, and so is the building. The building is also one of the largest buildings in the commercial zoning district. And so every sign code has to have a limit, and that is 2. But thinking of what is reasonable for a building of this size, it's reasonable to find that you would need more than 2 to advertise your business. And then the rest of these, so it would not violate any building or fire code requirements, does not harm the public. And then again, it's also the minimum variance as that the applicant was seeking to replace existing sign areas and not create any new ones. So those are criteria staff find being met. So that's action item 1. The second one is to allow a wall sign on the side of a building which is not a frontage. And so that yellow is what can be considered frontage here. And the two signs on the north elevation, because that is not open to a public area, it can't be considered a frontage. So as code reads, you could not have any signage on that frontage. Now it is an area open to customers. When you're in the pool, you can use those, use entrances on this side, but because it's not public, it can't be considered per code a frontage for purposes of signage. So again, the subject are the wall sign for Spa of the Rockies and then the entrance sign. And so in this case, existing sign is 57 square feet, proposed area would be smaller. And so again, the sign as it is could stay, but if you're going to replace it, it requires a variance since code does not allow signage on a part of the building that's not considered frontage. And then this is the second sign, which again would also be getting smaller. And this sign would be similar to the style of the ones that were put on the south side of the building with the recent variants. So same style, the illumination, color, material. And so again, with the variance criteria for this variance, the hardship is the configuration of the building. It's a very large site. You can approach it from multiple directions. And as the site operates, it needs to have one secure entrance point. So you really couldn't, it'd be practical to have another secondary public entrance. And then also looking at, because it is such a large area and having the only public entrance on the south side, without any signage on the north side, it'd be difficult for visitors possibly to find it, especially if they're on foot, trying to figure out where they need to go. Because one aspect of this site is you have people approaching it that first they might be in a vehicle, which is the purpose of like the large pole sign out front. But then once they might park, how are they going to get there? So there is a lot of need for wayfinding, especially from the north. And then also, again, just being the minimum variance is that they're replacing existing signage areas and they're actually getting smaller. And so that's action item 2. And that is, again, just to allow signage on that north building elevation. And then the third one is to allow internally illuminated signs within the downtown core. And so this is an example of one of the existing signs that was previously approved the variance in 2024 for internal illumination. And so that's what it looks like. Again, for starters, so the downtown core, where is that? What is that? It's that entire area in teal. And then you can see the subject property in white. And so just a little background, gonna go kind of on a tangent. Everything when Glenwood was originally platted is considered the downtown core, with the exception, there's all these outlots, which are out here. Those were excluded, but everything else that was platted and has been built on over time in this area was included. And then also, so you can see right here, that's the outline of where the pool is today, which is in that boundary. And then also the south addition. So this is platted in 1936 and got added to the city. So all those areas, and it'll come up and it comes up in different, it's used as a geographic boundary for different code standards in this one in particular. So again, as far as the existing signage, you can see there are 4 existing internally illuminated signs and 4 that are externally illuminated. This is how it exists today. And the proposal would be to have all of them be internally lit. And that comes in a variety of forms. And so this is what the applicant's proposing. And so you can see 2 styles of signage, which I'll explain a little more. You have this backlit area, which is considered a halo signage, and that's considered external. And then you have this front part where you can see the return. Think of like the sides of the letters, where it's front lit and it's internal to the sign. So that is what's subject to the variance. So to illustrate this, this existing wall sign right here, that's halo lit. And so the light is on the back of the letter, it shines against the wall, and the reflecting light then illuminates that the letter outline. And so that's considered external. This is also considered external. You have another light source that shines down on a light. And so these are considered external signs and would be allowed. But because the proposed signage does have that internal illumination element on the letters on the front side, that's what triggers the variance. And same thing here, you see the same thing. That's a halo lit style letter where the lighting is in the back. So code doesn't prohibit illumination in the downtown core. It just gets very specific with the type. So again, existing halo signs, these are some other examples. So the amount of light that comes from a halo style light can really vary, especially when you start adding color and other designs into it. And then other forms of internally illuminated signage. So actually on here, where the Maxwell Anderson Hotel, that's neon signage. And so that's allowed by code. So they didn't need a variance to do that. The one on the right, this is not in Glenwood Springs, but this is a internally illuminated sign. Because a couple years ago, Planning and Zoning Commission did see a variance for Cadova where they wanted to use that style of lighting, and that variance was denied for being internally illuminated. You can kind of see the style differences where what the applicant has proposed is really closer to what this neon signage would be in the amount of light and what's being illuminated. And so this is just another graphic too, just to show the differences. So here's that existing hot spring sign. It's internally illuminated, so that's non-conforming, but it can stay there. If they were to replace that, it'd be subject to the same regulations these other signs are. And same thing with the Glenwood Canyon Brew Pub. That's another internally illuminated sign where the letters are face lit. And then also you have the Maxwell Anderson, which those are neon. So this image, you can see the differences in illumination between each type and the style. And again, the sign on the north would be similar to the ones on the front with that internal illumination on the letters. And then also the glass piece at the bottom. So just, again, that for reference. And again, that's just more showing where that lighting is on a letter. So reviewing agency comments, fire department found the alterations to signage would not negatively affect emergency response. There were no public comments submitted. And then just as a recap, the first item was to exceed the number on a building frontage. Staff recommends approval with findings and conditions. Action item 2 is to have signage on the north side of the building, which is not considered a frontage per code. Staff recommends approval with findings and conditions. And then the third one is for the internal illumination. And staff recommends approval for that as well. And then just as a reminder, your options, you can approve the variance, deny the variance using the alternative motions as found in the staff report, approve the variance with additional conditions, or continue the item to the next regularly scheduled meeting. And then here are the findings. So finding that it does meet all of the variance criteria. And then for conditions, some of these are fairly standard for a variance. The applicant, if approved tonight, would have to come back with a sign permit application prior to installation. All of the lighting would have to comply with maximum illumination amounts found in code, also with illumination controls as far as time when you can turn those off. And then also number 8, prior to the issuance of a permit, the applicant would need to provide a photometric study. And so what that is it's a study showing the light output of all the signage. And so they would need to submit that, and staff would have to review that and find that the lighting output from these lights meets code before it could be installed. So thinking of it in that sense, the internal illumination, that is one part of the approval. So that you'd be considering. And then if you were to approve it, they would need to have a photometric study showing that it works and that it meets code. If they were not, they'd have to revise the lighting design. And again, just for reference, if you do find to deny any of the variances, you will need to use the alternative motions and provide findings as to why it does not meet these.
Okay, are you finished?
Yep.
Okay, I just want to remind everyone, so we're the deciding body for variances, so. Okay. Okay, we're now open for questions from the commission. Commissioner White.
Emery, can you tell us what the intent is for allowing neon signs versus internal illumination signs? Is it just stylizing?
It's 2. Partly it's aesthetic, just the look of it. And then we also have a number of existing neon signs in town. And so it's also that there's kind of a preservation piece and allowing a vehicle for those signs to continue to stay. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, I have a couple questions. So one is, I thought you did a good job on page 5 of your report. And you didn't really, at least I didn't really hear you talk about it specifically, but when you talked about the maximum size of the signs, could you put that up?
From the staff report?
Yeah, from the staff
Yeah.
report. I just want to make sure that I understand that correct. Yeah, right. Yeah, so how, how I read that is that, so when it says the maximum size area, does that mean here's what code would allow for size? And then if you go to the far right, the proposed size, that's what the size is gonna be?
Correct.
Is that how you read that?
So maximum size area, so the larger the building that you have, the more sign area you can have. So a very large building like this one could, if they wanted, have a very large sign. So that's the maximum, and then existing, and then, yes, proposed. So you can see
Yeah.
the existing ones are less than you could
Significantly
potentially
less,
have.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
That's
I mean, I added them up as like 122 square feet for the proposed ones, and the maximum size area is like significantly bigger.
and something to remember too is, so per code, you'd only get 2. So that would be like
Correct.
2 very,
But
very large
even-
signs.
Even 122 is exact. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood that right. And then, one thing you talked about on the hardship is the size of the building. And when you looked at when you put up the downtown area, I mean, the building, what did you say was 400 and something
Here, I'll
feet
bring up the
long?
photo.
And
So actually back to, so the maximum sign area, it's either the largest sign you can have is 25 square feet or 1 square foot for linear frontage for when you have a single.
Whichever's
single-tenant building.
smaller.
Yeah, no, whichever's larger.
Oh, whichever.
So that's why it ends up being so large.
Okay, okay.
That
Yeah,
is
I mean, it's not gonna happen, but still, I mean,
So that would be this distance.
that's that distance there.
Yes.
And I mean, for me, one way I think of it is I think of like a city block. That's maybe 3 city blocks or 2 city blocks or something like that. I mean, to put size and perspective to.
Mhm.
Okay,
Football field.
okay. Yeah, I don't really have any other questions. Okay, thank you very much, Emery. Okay, does the applicant want to speak? And if you could state your name and where you're from, that'd be great.
I'm Beth Rosa with Art House Design. I also have Kevin Floor here with me, the owner of Glenwood Hot Springs Resort. So I will go through this rather quickly because I think some of it is, wait, I'm doing over here, sorry, is kind of some of the same information that Emery just provided. Is it this guy? Am I, oh, no, just share. Okay, so just really quickly, I'm with Art House Design. We're a branding firm from Denver. We have, we specialize in the built environment, so signage and branding for the built environment. We've been working on the Glenwood Hot Springs Resort project for, it's been 2 years now. And so we were here last year presenting the signage that we designed for the East End renovation and the new branded signage for the pool entrance and the main entrance. And so just kind of a quick refresher on some of those drawings. We did the main pylon sign that when you first come in to the property, and then there are two signs that lead you under the breezeway toward the pool entrance. Just giving that more of a moment of arrival, because there was a lot of, and probably still is a little bit of a difficulty with folks coming from out of town and trying to find the entrance to the pool and going to the building which will now be the hotel that we're currently designing the signage for. And so the kind of the purpose of the initial variance was to help people not always go to the hotel building and to go to the pool entrance when they're looking for the pool. And so these are some of the signs that we designed for that first variance that we did last year. And then just a couple of shots of the built signs. This is on the south side at the pool entrance. And then this is the west end of that breezeway. And then this you've seen, just the illumination intent, which will match what we're hoping to do for the hotel. So then this is this is the version at the top, it's the top of the north stair. And then this one is at the ADA ramp, just leading both to the lodge, to and from the lodge to the pool entrance. And these are the drawings that you've seen. And so the design intent here is for the brand of the hotel 1888 signage to, obviously it has a separate brand, separate from the Glenwood Hot Springs Resorts brand. But it still is kind of part of the family. You know, you're still on the resort, but it's meant to obviously let folks know that they're at the hotel rather than the pool entrance. And so hopefully that will, with it not saying spa at the Rockies and athletic club, it will help people not stop there. And then obviously the people that are supposed to go there, the hotel guests, will know where to go. So again, they're similar in design and illumination. This is a closer look at the gable signage. And then this is on the north. No, this is the south facade, the larger one, and then the north. Why is that backwards? Yes, the north facade is smaller. And then just, I know there was some on the staff report mention of the illumination kind of being in question. And so these are just a couple studies just to show a rendering of the illumination intent. So it has a little bit of a glow on the backside that illuminates the historic brick there. And then for the gable sign, and so that would be for both the north and the south sign. And then for the gable sign, this one, the lower one that says Hotel 1888 and Athletic Club, just has an LED that's around the perimeter. The letters themselves are not illuminated. Just the Hotel 1888 type is pushed through and edge lit or halo illuminated. And that's just kind of a closer look of at the gable sign, the smaller one. It is 3 feet in diameter. And that's what I have for the presentation. So, and I guess the question about the lighting is, you know, if we're looking at these signs and kind of showing like what the illumination looks like at the pool entrance, you know, we're looking to do something similar to that. And if we're doing a study, what was it called? What was it called? Photometric study. It's kind of like a simulation analysis of the lighting intent. And I'm just curious if renderings like this are sufficient or if it's something that needs to be with like real output numbers and that kind of thing. That's all I got. Thank you.
Okay, why don't you see, let's see if we have any questions. Any questions for the applicant? I'll ask a couple questions. So someone's got to. So one is, and I wasn't thinking about it, but you mentioned photometric. I mean, you know, I don't think we ever do those for signs, or do we ever, do we do them for signs like we do for parking lots and stuff like that? So was there one done for this? Or
we-
is it required?
It's not, but it hasn't been required. I think that's something we were going to discuss today. We did do the renderings that showed the illumination intent, but it's not anything that has sort of a simulation analysis that is kind of with exact data and output and that kind of thing. We don't, Art House, my company doesn't do that. We
Right,
need to
exactly.
hire a lighting designer in order to do that, or they have special software that can run that data.
Yeah, it was not done on the previous variance, and then after considering all the illumination happening on site, staff's requiring it on this one, so.
Okay. Okay, thanks. And then one other question I have is, so variance 3 is on the internally illuminated signage. I mean, you know, you put up the one slide of the 1888 sign, which is both backlit halo and then has the internal that comes through as well. And I mean, I can guess here's why you're doing that, but could you just kind of explain why you're
So
doing?
why it has the illumination on the back of the
From the,
sign is-
yeah, well, and the internal, because that's the variance that's coming out there.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, so I think the halo illumination, of course, it matches what we did for the rest of the brand on the project. But if we're not considering what we've already done, I think it's something where, you know, the kind of the brand of the project in general is it's kind of a spa-like retreat. It's calming, it's quiet, speaks with a soft voice. And I would say that this type of lighting is a little bit softer. It doesn't have as much visual impact, I would say, as a neon sign. And while I love neon, I think neon is a little buzzier, you know, it's a little bit more energetic, it's brighter, and that type of illumination doesn't really fit the brand. And it's something where all of the lighting, when you're inside the pool, you know, is downlit and it's just very soft and quiet. And I think we're trying to match that across the whole resort.
Okay, good, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so is there anyone here from the public to speak about this, either here in the room or online? Seeing that there are none, we'll close the public hearing. Okay, so now it comes back to the commission for, yeah, I think we'll take each variance separate. Commissioner Connerton.
Okay, so for action item number 1, variance 1, which is the permanent sign standards to exceed limit of 2 total wall projecting or roof sign, 1 per building frontage. I'd like to motion to approve section 070.040.110 with the conditions and findings on staff report pages 13 through 14.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Connerton. Do we have a second? Commissioner Cowan.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Commissioner Cowan. Any questions or comments or? Okay, let's call the question.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner Connerton.
For action item number 2, variance request, sorry, I'm off. For action item number 2, variance request to consider approval of variance for relief from section 070.040.110 to allow a wall sign on the side of a building which does not abut a street, parking lot, or other area open to the public and that has a public entrance to the building. I motion to approve this with staff recommendations of the variance request in the report, pages 13 and 14.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Second. Okay. Second by Commissioner Cowan. Any questions, comments? Okay, we'll call the question on this one.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, we have one more variance, variance number 3. Commissioner Connerton.
Okay, last but not least, action item number 3, variance request to consider approval of a variance for relief from section 070.040.110 to allow an internally illuminated signage within the downtown core. Motion to approve with staff staff findings and conditions on pages 13, 14 of the report.
Okay, second. Second. Okay, Commissioner Cowan, seconded. Any questions or comments? Commissioner Houghton.
I was just gonna say, I think the photometric plan is potentially a little onerous. It's definitely more difficult with a custom sign than like a parking lot fixture. Typically, the way that's done is you create the fixture, you put it in this thing that looks like a big orb, and you literally measure it, and then you can use that in your computer simulation. Maybe there's another way to do it without going through that whole process of creating it and testing it first, but I just want to point out, I think that's potentially a little onerous with a custom sign.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner Connerton.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. You're the lighting expert and amongst our commission here, I always like to count on you for, bringing those things to our attention. I mean, I kind of agree. Some of the comments from the sign person, sorry, Art House. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. I apologize. She used a lot of language like softer, more appropriate for that space, for that area. And when we were discussing the variance from 2024, that was a big discussion that we talked about, was how we wanted it to be softer and quieter in that area. And I think that they approached that with a lot of thought on this. And I wouldn't be opposed to maybe reconsidering that condition
Of amending your
of amending.
motion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Next to you.
okay, Commissioner Sipperly.
I would also agree that photometric study might be costly and difficult to conduct, as I do know that they're pretty much done on standard fixtures. Perhaps instead of the photometric study, we could require light level readings at the edge of the property just to assure compliance, and perhaps the fixtures can even be fitted with like a dimmer so that if they were installed in too bright, they could be toned back down. Up for discussion.
Okay, Commissioner White.
Didn't Emery say that we didn't require that for this? The photometric study? I guess I'm confused.
So oftentimes with a sign permit, it's not a required submittal as part
Right.
of it. We do have regulations on what that illumination could be. So if we had, let me back up a little bit. We have limits on when the signs can be on. We have limits on if it's close to a residential zoning district, what time they need to be turned off.
Mhm.
We also have, and it's measured in foot candles, specifically for signage, how far from the sign. And so typically with signs is we review them to see what kind of illumination are they proposing? Is it allowed in this location? If it came to be a problem, then we would usually deal with it following that. For the previous variance, it was not required. And then reviewing the application for this one, thinking about just in context, if that's a lot of signage, it'd be a requirement. And then also just to add on what staff would be looking for in that is when it gets down to we would want that study to show is really the lighting trespass. And so that means what lighting is leaving your property. And then also what's the lighting level 10 feet from that property line. So for some of these signs, they're set quite far back from the property line. So probably if, you had a reading that was designed to that specific custom sign, you're pretty far from the property line, and actually all of these. So the main point was to understand what the illumination was for the site, since previous ones had been approved.
But staff is recommending that we do that study.
Correct. Or some form of it.
I think just for clarification, Commissioner White, to answer your question, it's not a requirement in our sign application, but we do have exterior lighting standards. So with the abundance that we have occurring on the site, we would like to check for compliance, which is why staff put it as a condition of approval, but it's not a requirement of the application. So you can remove it if you'd like, if you don't like that condition.
So it is a condition for staff. I mean, if we approve it, they will need to follow through with that before they get
Correct.
approved,
To show compliance with
to show
lighting standards.
compliance.
I think that it makes sense to keep it. There are a lot of signs. I think it also is kind of a landmark in our community. And I think there are a lot of people that are opposed to signage. And so I think, just requiring it honors that kind of converse opinion about signage in our little town. So I'm okay with keeping it, particularly if staff recommends it.
Commissioner Sipperly.
I guess this comes to the difference between a complete photometric study and a verification of foot candles illuminating at the property line and 10 feet past the property line. Would we be all right if the applicant assures us and then tests after the signs are installed that they are in compliance? Because that's the objective. I'm just concerned that a photometric study could be an unfair burden on the applicant.
Okay. Other comments or? Commissioner Houghton.
Yeah, I think it makes a little bit more sense to maybe make it a condition that I guess the code is always enforced, but that there's an actual check-in post completion, and maybe even a requirement that they're installed with dimmers, like you proposed initially, so they could be dialed back without having to opening,
Other? Commissioner Connerton.
What? I'm not the light doctor. Emery, what does a photometric study look like? Just walk me through it briefly.
I can,
What is it?
well, so the ones that we've received, and so everything is measured in foot candles, which is a unit of measurement for light. And so like Commissioner Houghton described, you have your fixtures and those have certain outputs, and you're usually plugged into like a system where you enter all the fixtures and then that output is measured, and you'll have all these points. You get like a field. So you'd have the site plan and it'd be a field of points with numbers. So it'd be like 3.0 foot candles because I'm right next to the lighting source. While I'm a little bit farther away, 2.5 foot candles, I'm 15 feet away, it's down to 0.9. So that's what it looks like.
Is there a estimate cost for something like this? Cause I mean,
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I'll kind of weigh in here a bit. I mean,
Typically-
so for me, I guess my experience with them is that it's like in parking lots and that sort of thing where you have lights through a huge area versus lights on a building. And I know from my experience of doing them that you would also have lights on the building as well as all the lights in the parking lot. So I mean, that's where I guess for me, I kind of support what Carolyn and John are saying, that where it's more about the individual fixtures versus maybe a full photometric.
If I may
Okay.
make a possible suggestion, you
Mhm.
could change the condition language to not mention photometric plan, but by any means that shows compliance with the lighting standards. And then that would allow a little bit of flexibility for staff and the applicant to find the most efficient and hopefully least expensive way of doing so.
And then I'd also add to that, so the way the condition is worded is prior to issuance of sign permit.
Right.
So if commission felt like the timing of that should be different, that would also be changed.
Okay,
What was that last part that
Uh,
you just said?
Just number 8, it reads prior to issuance of sign permit. So
Oh,
if
right.
you
Yes,
felt like it would
because
be better to
she
do
would
it
have to
after
come.
installation, that would also need to be amended.
so Commissioner Connerton, are you gonna amend your motion?
I'd like to amend my motion. Would, how can we do this? Because it would be,
Ask,
excuse me,
Hannah,
Carl.
Hannah to state what you were thinking.
So amending the motion to remove staff's condition to require a photometric plan
Mhm.
and have staff work with the applicant prior to issuance of CO or certificate of completion to show compliance with lighting standards.
Okay, so Sue, do I need to, read each action item again?
No,
It was on.
yeah, we're only talking about it on the
Yeah,
last one.
it was number
Yeah,
3.
you're only,
Yeah.
you're only
Yeah,
on
okay.
variance 3, which is the pending
Yes.
motion.
Correct.
So I think
Okay.
the amendment would be to strike condition 8 and replace it with
Okay,
What Hannah
what
said.
Hannah had just said. And I think that's fine to do that because we have it on the record.
okay. So I'd like to amend my motion. For the staff finding, and conditions on page 13 and 14. For number 8, to actually, instead of it saying prior to issuance, that, the applicant is going to work with the city to ensure compliance, light level compliance, as well as, am I right?
I think that's it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, do we have a
Thank you.
second, Commissioner Cowan?
Second.
Okay. We have an amended motion and a second on finding number 8. Any other questions or comments? Okay, let's call the amended motion to question here.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. Good luck, Kevin. I don't know. Does anyone need a break? What? Okay, I'm gonna call for a 5-minute break before we go, Watkins. Okay, we'll be back at 6:53. And by my watch.
I mean, everything's fine.
Yeah, but not for Going to call the meeting back to order. Next on the agenda is planning files 01-25 and 05-25, the Canyon Vista Major Site Architectural Plan and 1041 Review. 151-993 Highway 6. And Planning and Zoning is a recommending group on this project.
All
Okay.
right, thank you, Chair Waller.
No, Marcus.
Thank you, commissioners, for being here tonight, using your sunny night as well to the audience. It's the first meeting I can remember in a while where we started in the sun. I don't know if it'll be dark when we get out of here. So this is for Canyon Vista. This is an affordable housing project on Highway 6. There are 2 action items here that I'm going to talk about in more detail, but first is a major site architectural plan. And the second is a 1041 review. We're going to talk about what that means and what that means practically for your motions when you get to that point. So where we are here is a site on Highway 6. It's the former Glenwood Gardens site. Anyone who's been around here long enough would probably remember that. The proposal is for an 80-unit affordable housing project. The Glenwood Gardens, the former nursery is no longer active there, although I understand that they do a little bit of kind of more private stuff, but it's not open to the public. There are, I believe, 2 single-family homes there that are still occupied, a couple of abandoned homes, and then a lot of accessory structures on this site, which is about 4 acres, so it's a pretty large site. The bedroom count for these 80 units is about 4 studios, 21 one-bedrooms, the majority 52 2-bedrooms, and then 3 3-bedroom units. So the site here, this 4-acre site, is located in between what used to be the Roadway Inn on the east, and then the Elks Building and the mobile home park behind it on the west, Donegan Road to the north, obviously, and Highway 6 to the south. The project is in 3 buildings. This is capital A affordable housing project. That means that this is not likely to be affordable. This is going to be affordable by design and by deed restriction. And this is the kind of development that does not happen through the private sector. This is made possible by several sources of funding. The LIHTC program, LIHTC stands for Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program. This is a highly competitive program. I think the ratio of success is about 1 out of every 5 that apply for it get it. And it's a very valuable award to get. There are private activity bonds from Garfield County that were awarded to this project, some vouchers from the Garfield County Housing Authority. City Council has put forward some funds from the Workforce Housing Fund toward this and also waived some of the fees for it. They are also, which I'm going to talk about in more detail later on, they've requested some flexibility that you're permitted to give them because this is an affordable housing project. So those are kind of code flexibility measures that we talk about. This is a big long table that we can come back to if you guys want to. This is just copied from what's in your staff report, the kind of more or less complete list of requirements that apply to it. So getting into the requirements, first thing I want to talk about is the architectural design. And to put it just in plain language for you guys, this standard that I'm going to talk about, this is about making it look nice or pretty nice and making it so that it doesn't look like a featureless box. So one way that we do that is by requiring a minimum number of architectural features on each side of the building, even the sides that don't face streets. And so with multifamily projects like this, we require at least 5 architectural features. And I've given you an example of the back building of how it meets that. I'm not going to go through each of the elevations, but I will take this opportunity to just scroll through a little bit so you can see kind of what it looks like from the renderings they've given us. Another thing that we look at with the design of the building is height transitions. So this is how we try to get new development to mitigate their effect on the existing development that's around them. When there's an adjacent dwelling that's next to a new development, if it's taller, 1 or more stories taller than the proposed development, then we make them do certain things like have a step down or have it kind of match the roof slope and things like that to kind of mitigate the effect of it being taller. Those height transition requirements aren't going to apply to the east elevation. That's formerly the Roadway Hotel. It's now an extended stay hotel that's workforce housing. It's not going to apply to the east side. The west side is a little bit of a different story. This is an area that's a little bit tough to grade whether it meets the height transition requirements or not, and I'll explain why. The adjacent mobile home is sitting at a grade that's going to be much higher than this grade. So in other words, the bottom of this building is going to sit much lower, but it's a taller building than the mobile homes are. So the result is that this development, Canyon Vista, that back building is going to be about 10.5 feet taller than the height of the mobile home. So since I'll read it again for you, the standard is that if it exceeds that of an adjacent existing dwelling by 1 story or more, then you have to use these height transition standards. Now, a story is not something that we define in the zoning code, and it's not something that's really standardized in the construction industry. So that's why I say it's a little bit of an uncertainty, but we feel that 10.5 feet, we think that's close enough to a story that we think it counts as a story. So we think that the height transition standards should apply to the west side. They don't do that, and they only do it in like one of the ways. You have to provide 3 height transition methods, and for that reason, that is the first flexibility request that we're going to talk about tonight for this project. Now for open space and landscaping, start with landscaping. They're required to provide 15% of the lot as landscaped, which is a pretty big area considering that it's a big lot. But they have far exceeded that and are planning to provide 43,000 square feet of landscaping. A little bit of revision that we're going to look for, the number of trees, we want it to increase by 1. The planting strip is going to be another area where we're going to where the applicant is requesting some flexibility here. Planting strip is what's in between the sidewalk and the street, and we like that to be 5 feet of landscaped area. That's a nice buffer for pedestrians. It's good for the traveling public. What's there right now, if you've driven by there, is some kind of hardscaped yellow brick or orange brick that's there. And so what's brick will be landscaped, is what we're recommending. But that existing planting strip, it's not planted right now, but you know what I mean, is not conforming to the 5 feet requirement. It kind of starts at about 5 feet, a little bit less, and then tapers down to about 2 feet or maybe even less than 2 feet. So we're recommending allowing flexibility for that, for it to stay the same non-conforming tapering shape that it is now, but landscape it. Common open space. They're required to provide 20% of the lot area as common open space, and they just meet that. I'll note that one of the ways that they meet that is through incorporating some stairs in that northwest corner of the property that goes up to Donegan. You see the kind of twisting and turning stairs that will go up and provide access for people to walk from this project up to Donegan and cross the existing crosswalk there to the sidewalk and be on their way. As a multifamily development, they have to provide 1.5 parking spaces per unit plus 1 guest parking space for every 5 units. And so if you do the math on 80 unit, that's 136 parking spaces, and they are giving us 2 more than they're required to. For bike parking, we do require a certain amount of bicycle parking. It's based on the number of car parking spaces that are required. So they have to give us 9 bike parking spaces, and they're proposing 16. Another area in which flexibility is requested here is parking in the front setback. Normally, we don't allow parking to designated parking off-street parking spaces to be in the front setback. In this zoning district, the front setback is a really pretty big area. I don't think I mentioned that this is M1, which stands for mixed use corridor. And so the front setback, it has both a minimum and a maximum. So the minimum is 5 feet, the maximum is 60 feet. And so everything that's in there is considered the front setback. So we're allowing, and that's where they have programmed some of their parking to be. So we're requesting or recommending that site design flexibility be applied for this aspect of the project too. As far as traffic and the traffic report that they provided, they found that no turn lanes or intersection improvements are necessary here. And that traffic study was accepted by CDOT. They were required to get an access permit through CDOT, which is why they're reviewing it as well. Now with retaining walls, these are where the remaining items of flexibility that we're going to talk about come from. There are actually a lot of requirements that you might not know about in our zoning code that relate to retaining walls. There's a maximum height, there's required landscaping at the base of the walls. When there are terraced retaining walls, there's required landscaping in between them. There's a maximum number of terraces, and then a minimum amount of spacing in between the terraces. And then they're also required to have what are called offsets, which are basically just kind of changes in the plane. So you think of like a recession or a projection, something that has the effect of casting shadows. Those are required in retaining walls that are longer than 30 feet. And the applicant is requesting site design flexibility for several of those items, number 1, 4, 5, and 6. Community housing requirements are the requirement, or it's also called inclusionary zoning, wherein 20% of all units in a rental multifamily development are required to be deed restricted for 100% AMI, AMI being area median income, as well as deed restricted for resident occupancy. Obviously, when 100% of the units are proposed to be deed restricted like this project is, this is meeting them. However, one issue that you run into with these kind of projects that have federal funding, like the LIHTC award that I mentioned, is that the resident occupancy requirement, which means that ordinarily the resident who lives in one of the units must be a member of the local workforce here, that can actually run afoul of the Fair Housing Act. And so what we've done in other projects to work with that is to require compliance at the end of the LIHTC period, which is typically 40 years. And in this case, another method that we've tried to mitigate that issue with is using carrots rather than sticks. When the funds were appropriated from the Workforce Housing Fund by City Council, there was a condition on that which said that if it would become a forgivable loan. There was a forgivable loan if they met this requirement here, that 20% of the units were deed restricted. So every year that occurs, that year would be forgivable. So we think that with that carrot and with the requirement that once the federal land use restriction sunsets after 40 years, that we can get to there and meet certainly the intent, but probably even the letter of these requirements here. So I'll talk a little bit more about this site design flexibility that I mentioned several times now. This comes from section 070-045-080, and it's a section that's called Incentives for Affordable Housing. And the site design flexibility allows flexible application of design standards, including but not limited to minimum lot size, building height, lot coverage, impervious coverage, setbacks, and landscaping. So that's pretty broad, obviously. Our housing guidelines provide a little bit more detail. There are limits on how high you can go with this. And also specifically, you cannot use this for parking. Other than that, all the things that I've proposed are available for flexible application of these design standards. And the intent of that is to just make affordable housing projects more possible. They run into all kinds of challenges that market rate developments don't have. And so this is an incentive. And just to restate what I've said, these are the 7 specific issues that we're looking at for site flexibility that we are recommending approval of. And then I think 4 of them relate to retaining walls. So not too many referral comments that I need to draw your attention to. One, though, is from the engineering department. They would like to work with the applicant, and we've begun discussions with them to move a bus shelter that's currently, I think it's in the middle of the sidewalk near the Elks property, which is not a great condition. So we are working with them to put this on the Canyon Vista property so that it wouldn't block the sidewalk anymore, And then in a parallel process that's not really related to this application, we're going to try to create a return bus shelter there. The other reason that the one in front of the Elks is not great is because there is no return bus stop. So you can get on there, but you can't get off there. And with this project, we're hoping to change that, make it better for the whole system. Public Works and Fire Department had pretty standard questions and comments. We do find that this project is consistent in many ways with our comprehensive plan. It helps to direct development to locations and building forms that are cost effective to serve. It's in an area that already has services. It helps to provide equitable and diverse housing for the entire community. It helps to support social diversity. It helps to encourage a compact urban form, helps to create a community for all. It would increase housing density. It would direct growth to areas where utilities and services can be provided efficiently. And it does meet the future land use map, which the designation is mixed use. So these are all goals, policies, or actions that are in our comprehensive plan. There are 4 criteria of approval for major site architectural plans like this one. I won't read them to you, but I will read the findings which reference these here in a second. And just a reminder then, the action 1 is consideration of a major site architectural plan for the 80-unit multifamily building. And you will be making a recommendation to City Council, who makes the final decision on this. I'm recommending the conditions of approval from the staff report with one exception here. There's number 13 that I think you guys should consider adding. A building permit for the project will not be issued until a minor subdivision has been finalized that consolidates the 3 existing parcels. I think I alluded to that a couple places in the staff report, but didn't make it into the conditions. So for action 1, the recommended findings are here. These reflect the 4 that were on the previous screen, and then the 3 at the end, number 5, 6, and 7, are specific to the request for site design flexibility. So I'll read them out to you. Number 1, the site architectural plan is consistent with the general purpose and intent of the code. 2, the site architectural plan is consistent with dimensional design, development, and all other standards of this code. 3, the site architectural plan is not in conflict with precedent land use approvals. 4, the site architectural plan is consistent with the comprehensive plan and other adopted city policies and plans, including the strategic housing plan update. 5, the flexibility requests do not harm the public health, safety, or welfare. 6, the flexibility requested is in general conformance with a comprehensive plan and with the stated purpose and intent of the code, including the specific regulations from which the development is sought. And 7, the flexibility requested will not violate building or fire code requirements. Action item 2 is the 1041 review. And we recommend approval of the 1041 review with the findings and conditions in the staff report. There are 22 findings, so I'm not going to read all of those out to you, but those are in the staff report. And we recommend the conditions of approval be exactly the same as what you find for the major site architectural plan review. That's all I've got.
Okay, thank you, Watkins. Okay, questions from the commission? Commissioner Sipperly.
I recall in some past applications that we were at least encouraging or requiring a variety in unit types. Does the number of bedrooms that this proposal has, like the different 1 and 2, 3 bedroom units, does that constitute a variety of unit types?
That is one of the ways. Yep. They meet the housing variety requirements because mainly through it being an affordable housing project. So there are some exceptions built into there. They still have to meet 2, and the 2 are 1, just the housing type that it is, multifamily, and then the variety of bedroom types, I believe is what it is. But it's the exceptions for affordable housing that gets them there.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Commissioner White.
I know we just saw another 1041 review, but can you just briefly go over the nuance of what that is and why it's required for this?
Absolutely, yeah. 1041 reviews, it has a longer and convoluted proper name, guidelines related to, help me out, Carl, guidelines related to matters of state interest.
Exactly.
Is that it?
Yeah.
So there are as stated in the code, and I know I didn't go through it very much, but there are certain activities in certain areas that are designated of state interest. So this isn't one of the an example of that would be like a new wastewater treatment plant or something like that. So this isn't any of that, but this is an area of designated state interest in that it is adjacent to Highway 6.
And just to follow up on that, so that provides a higher level of scrutiny. In this instance, there really was no, I mean, with the, identification by CDOT that they weren't going to require anything in issuing that access permit. That's kind of the core of what that would be related to. And so when the city adopted its 1041 regulations, we really focused on those activities and areas that were most impactful to the community, particularly around major transportation corridors.
And I know that we've also seen some of these requests for flexibility for these affordable housing projects. Is there, from staff's perspective, is there an amount of requests that feels kind of excessive? Is 7 an excessive request for flexibility, or is that, I mean, obviously you guys are recommending approval, so I'm presuming no.
Yeah, I don't think so. This is more than the other ones. I think you've looked at 2 others in the past, and one was 4 and one was 6. I would say this is not excessive because many of these are just really pretty minor. We're talking about I don't know if I even mentioned that, the width of the parking, the landscaping island in the parking lot from 6 feet to 9 feet. Technically that doesn't meet code. That's one other on the list. So we think these are minor items.
And the parking one, that had to do with parking being available at the front of the parcel, is that correct? Adjacent to the road?
That's right.
But that's kind of consistent with what we see as already existing in that area, isn't it?
It's true there, and in lots of parts of town, you do see off-street parking that's within the setback. With new development, we usually try to move that outside the front setback, but with a big project like this, it kind of works right there, and also due to the fact that this is with the zoning, it's a really large area that's in that front setback.
I know just from the community, like being a part of Glenwood, we've heard a fair amount of concern about what's going to happen with the historical greenhouse there. Is there anything we can do to require? I did see that that the applicant is going to make an effort to relocate it, as long as it's not a tremendous cost to them. Is there, I mean, that's a pretty subjective way to ask for them to comply with that. Is there a way to?
Yeah, I think it would be different if we had a real viable idea of where it could go or what we could do with it. We have been exploring that with the applicant and with Pitkin County and with the owner of the Redstone Castle, who has told us that he doesn't want it anymore. So we would love to see that. I don't think requiring it would might not meet the legal nexus, and it might be unreasonable to require that. And that maybe be a good question for the applicant too, because I know that they're interested if it's possible.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Guyman.
Watkins, I kind of got lost with the housing affordability with the 40-year sunset and the carrots and the sticks.
Yeah, let's talk about affordable housing.
Yeah, can you just review that one more time?
Sure. So that comes from the LIHTC award, LIHTC Low Income Housing Tax Credit. It's a major program, one of the major sources of funding for affordable housing projects when you can get it. And so that comes with some stipulations, and those are usually encapsulated in a land use, what is the terminology? Basically an agreement that they that they agree with from the funders. And that agreement that's the terms of getting that money from the tax credit program sunsets after 40 years. That's where that 40 years comes from. So, and I'll invite the applicants to correct me if I'm misstating anything here, but usually that 40-year period, after that, then the requirements of the agreement go away. It could at least according to the programs, as far as they're concerned, it could become a market rate development or it could be torn down. So after the 40 years, we're recommending that if it is to remain housing and to go market rate, we're recommending that they meet whatever inclusionary zoning standards there are at the time, or whatever we call inclusionary zoning at the time, meet those standards.
Okay, and then I also saw in that same section about how you can't require them to house local workforce.
Yeah, that's,
You want me
you
to
wanna jump in?
Sure. So there's this interesting interaction going on between what the federal guidelines require for the award of the tax credits versus local regulation. So it's most often the reason they do that is because your local regulation may say, nobody who is from a particular ethnicity or nobody who is from a particular gender can reside there. And so the fair housing guidelines are designed so that you can't do that. So you can't effectively redline inside of your community. So those same rules would apply when we have a local jurisdictional requirement regarding, workforce housing for residents. And the way in working with the attorney for the applicant in terms of trying to address that, and I've done this on other projects and other locales, this idea of just trying to confirm, we know that more than likely this is going to do exactly what our local regulations want, but we want some kind of verification of that at the end of each year. And so what council did was tied the $1.5 million loan out of the housing fund to that compliance, so that as long as they stay in compliance, that happens. That's it's not something we can say thou shalt only rent to the workforce from Glenwood Springs, because obviously they're federal funds. The housing should be available to anyone, right? Because it's federal funding. So that's kind of the balance that we've stricken.
Okay.
And Carl, just to follow up on that.
Commissioner White, you
Sorry, I
follow
just want
me.
to follow
Okay.
up on that. And so how does that look in administration? Do they just give a priority to residents or?
There's a couple of different ways that it can play out. They can talk a little bit about how that sort of plays out as well when they get up at the lectern. For us, it's a matter of them verifying at the end of the year, just kind of what the breakdown of residents and workers, what that looked like, just reporting on it for purposes of that loan coming out of the housing fund. And keep in mind, that's really what this is. I mean, for us, that's the big thing is we're trying to land that affordable housing for the workforce in Glenwood. How do we do that with a carrot when we can't necessarily impose it? We don't necessarily want to not see a project like this that can match AMIs that we could never get close to on our own. How do we thread that needle between our local regulation, what the workforce housing fund can be used for, and how do we implement that? And so that's kind of where we landed on that. I have seen in other LIHTC projects, and every attorney's opinion is different on whether it meets the fair housing guidelines. And so I leave it to the applicant's attorneys on this. We have seen priorities in terms of how their resident selection plan, which was kind of a first stop with this project. And then CHAFA didn't like that. CHAFA is very they're very pro housing, affordable housing. They don't really like these super tight local regulations. And so they said, we really don't want to see that kind of regulation. And that's how we landed on the administrative method that we came up with.
Okay, Commissioner Sipperly.
Since we are in the arid west, I'm going to bring up the water for the site. Now I realize they're going to have fire sprinklers, potable water, and likely irrigation water. Will the city be providing water, or will that come from the Mitchell Cooper water system?
Right now, they have a can and will serve letter from the city of Glenwood Springs. So and I guess I will kind of let the, Planning Commission know there is litigation related to Mitchell Cooper and the city of Glenwood Springs. And so there is a certain amount of risk for the applicant in this, but that's their risk to take on. So kind of, I guess what I'm saying is that's really whether that you like that, you don't like that, or how you feel about that. It's not really inside the scope of your review tonight.
Okay, Commissioner White?
And it should be Connerton, actually.
Oh, Commissioner Connerton.
Sorry. I just have a question about the traffic report. It seems like there is a turn lane, there is no turn lane. I guess maybe you could help me understand this, what the engineering department said, just because is there a bus stop right across the street from that? And maybe,
So the bus stop is on the north side of Highway 6, and it's in the middle of the sidewalk in front of the Elks. So the same
oh
side of the
yeah,
street.
okay. And that sidewalk is really narrow, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, and there's not a turn lane there right now. There's a turn lane near it. There's a turn lane that was installed back when the roadway in was the roadway in. So
Okay.
it serves that project and not this one.
So is there a consideration of a turn lane? I'm just wondering, because it seems like there's gonna be 80 units, lots of people pulling out onto Highway 6. And, it seems like it will increase traffic. I don't know, it says it's not going to, it can handle it, but I would think that a turn lane would be appropriate.
Well, it'll certainly increase traffic, but the traffic report that was accepted by CDOT finds that no intersection is going to be needed. No intersection improvements are going to be needed there, so no turn lane.
And that's a CDOT thing, right? Not
It is
city.
a CDOT
Yeah.
road, yes, ma'am.
So CDOT owns 6 and 24. I mean, is
Yeah.
that,
That's
owns them, I don't know if that's the right word, but. Okay,
And one more, about the height. In the renderings, it shows that there's gonna be flat solar panels. Is that just a rendering thing?
Yeah, the solar panels, they are going to have some on the roof. More of them are going to be on the back, the retaining walls and the back of the property.
Okay,
But where the height line is going to be the midpoint of the gables.
okay. Thank you.
okay, Commissioner White?
So much like we're talking about the sunset of those LIHTC funds, is there any way to incentivize the applicant or require them to consider converting the apartments into condos for sale at the end of a grant period? As a municipality, as you know, we all talk about kind of the missing entry-level housing for homeowners. Are there municipalities that are doing that successfully, or is there a way to incentivize the applicant to consider that in the future?
Well, I think that question is going to depend more on what our regulations are in 40 years as opposed to what they are right now. So if this were coming online right now, then we do have some incentives for that. We have a lower percentage that's required for them to be affordable if they're going to be for sale versus if they're going to be for rents. And it's half the amount, so that's an incentive. That's what's available right now. There are other things that we could consider and that we have considered in the past. Our density bonus things that we've talked about that would provide some incentives for home ownership and condominiumization. But it's going to depend, I think, more on the future and where we are in the future.
There's no way to build it into an approval now.
I'm just going to point out, low-income housing tax credit projects are only rental, so this would not be able to do that until
40
further on
years
down the
later.
line.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah,
That was-
and just as a follow-up to that, 40 years from now, as long as the state legislation doesn't change, City of Glenwood Springs would be given the opportunity of first right of refusal statutorily if this project were going to go to sale. Because what we have seen in some mountain communities is older LIHTC projects that have reached the end of their lifespan actually going for sale and turning over into free market units. So change in the legislature last year gives us a first right on these affordable housing projects if at the end of their life they do go up onto the free market.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, I have a couple questions. So one is I'm just gonna bring lighting up, and I know, our lighting code is what it is, and maybe this is more for the applicant, where I would like to make a request that for the parking lot lighting, using it now because I have you here, Watkins, but that there's some sort of, I'll use the word dimmable, but occupancy kind of lighting in the parking lot. That's more of the thing that I'm kind of interested in, but I'm assuming it's they're just doing our regular lighting requirements. I mean, that's because that's our requirements, right?
Well, they haven't given us the lighting plan, which is okay at this point. It's optional, because
Right.
we don't necessarily need to see where those are in order to know where the buildings are going to be and all those sorts of things. So what we've done is say that you will meet all of our requirements. Fortunately, we don't have a requirement that they have to be dimmable,
Right.
just that they have to
Exactly.
not exceed the maximum brightness.
We can just ask it. Okay. Thank you. This one's kind of multiple things in here a little bit with, but the landscape plan, and I saw the square footages, they're significantly over on that, and trees was one tree low, but I think they have maybe an extra tree in the median along 6 and 24. And I don't know if it's worth putting up the landscaping plan, but I guess I'd like to understand that the parking setback, and you know, how the sidewalk goes from 8 feet to 2, or whatever it is, it shrinks down for how it is already. And I guess what I'm kind of thinking through is all of the cars parked right there or vehicles parked right there, and what kind of screening is there?
Okay. Yeah, I can talk about the screening. They do have a plan for some densely landscaped area all along the streetscape to kind of block the view of the parking area.
Could you put that up there where we
Yeah,
can?
yeah, if you'll just bear with me for a minute. Okay, I can get a better view of the landscaping plan, but here is one. And so let's see if I can blow this up at all. Yeah, so this I believe is 6 feet wide, if you can see my cursor.
Yep.
And the intent is to screen everything besides the actual driveway so the parking area, so you shouldn't be able to see it too much from the street.
Are there shrubs and stuff in there as well, or
There are,
into that?
yeah.
And then, so when you talked about the sidewalk that runs along there, so was that a condition to make it be the same width all along, or?
Yeah, and the sidewalk is actually, I believe it's conforming here, and we've made a condition that it has to be the 8 feet. The sidewalk is fine, it's the planting strip that's a little deficient.
Okay,
That's,
where the pavers are now?
that's right. It tapers right now,
Yeah.
and so the idea is to keep that the same, but be
Okay.
landscaped.
Okay, so that's kind of the screening, is the trees and shrubberies and,
You'll have two screenings. You'll have the planting strip that's right now brick, that'll be plants. And then you have kind of an additional, I'll call it a planting strip that's in between the sidewalk and where the parking lot starts, which has
Okay.
trees, bushes.
okay, so
all that
that's
stuff.
2, okay. Okay, thank you. And then another one, I don't know if this might be a good plan. I mean, I was kind of looking through the plans, trying to understand the neighboring properties. And I think on the solar plan was the best one that I kind of saw for that. So you have Elks kind of across that street to the west. And then back behind that, there's like a drive that goes up to where the trailers are. And then you have Donegan behind. And then what's on the
On the
east, is that?
That's the former roadway inn, which is now called Iron Mountain Place. It's
Oh, and that's the RAFTA.
Yep, it's Rafta Workforce Housing. It's still classified as a hotel. It's kind of shorter intermediate stays for Rafta employees. I think that the key thing to know about this site is the grade difference. You know, as you all know, there's a lot of grade difference going up toward Donegan Road. Donegan's quite a bit above Highway 6, and it keeps on going up from there.
Right, yeah, that was one of my questions too. So is it like a 5% grade or something like that coming off of 6 and 24? And then there's the steep that goes up to Donegan, and there's that stairwell going up, and the solar is all back in that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to tell you what the percentage grade is. I
But-
think we
But
probably,
slight, but it's,
it's there.
right. Okay. Um. And yeah, someone brought up on the water, so I saw that, so that this is the West Glenwood Sanitation District and
That's
and
right.
so they had a very, kind of a pretty short write-up that said we have capacity and that was it. Do we know anything about that? I mean, are they,
Nothing more than them saying that they
I
are
was-
able to serve it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as far as we know, they have continued to maintain plenty of capacity for redevelopment in their service area.
and that's what their letter said. Okay, and I don't know if this is a question for the applicant, but so on these, so studios to 3 bedrooms, but mostly, I guess 1 and 2 bedrooms,
Bedroom.
but, so are there multifamilies? Can multifamilies, or can we say anything about that? I mean, could there be 3 families in 1 unit, or how does that?
That is not something that we regulate with our code. It's possible that the applicant, that the people who manage it might have rules about the number of people who can stay there, but not us.
The one thing I will add to that is our building code does have occupancy regulations that our building officials do. So that is what it's subsequent to. We don't refer to it as family or related individuals anymore, but we do have occupancy standards based on the size of the unit.
Right,
It's building code, yep.
okay. And then one last question on the reports that were given by the different groups. I saw that the fire department had theirs wasn't so much as, like Matt did of here's all of the things you need to do, was more a bunch of questions. So does the applicant need to go through and answer all those questions to your satisfaction, to our satisfaction, or how does that play out? Because I thought they had some great questions in there. Some of them didn't even seem like they're about the fire department, but I thought they were still good questions. How does that play out?
Yeah, that they address those with the fire department directly, which they've done. They've had a dialogue, I think. And you're right, it was kind of written in a more informal style, but they've had that check-in to discuss those things. And a lot of those details are going to come out in the more detailed next review that we're going to have, next set of plans.
Okay. So I mean, those are part of record, I guess, is all that I'm saying. So then there would be follow-up on those from here's what the answers are. Okay. That's all that I have for right now. No other questions? Okay, I guess we'll hear from the applicant.
Okay, comments?
And if the applicant could state your name and who you represent, that'd be great.
Make sure our screens. Thank you. Thank you, Planning Commission. Nick Emmenheiser, Development Director for Cohen Esri Development Group, based in Denver. I cover the Colorado market for Cohen Esri, and joined here by the Land Studio, High Country Engineers, and KTGY is online as well. So a little bit about Cohen Esri. Like I said, based in Kansas City, although I'm in Denver. Cohen Esri has developed about 56 properties with about 3,000 units so far to date through the low-income housing tax credit program. Primarily affordable housing, but also some mixed income housing. We maintain a development staff of about 22 people working on projects in about 14 different states at all times. And our Canyon Vista team that's been assembled involves ourselves, KTGY, Land Studio here locally, High Country Engineers here locally, CTL Thompson here locally as well, Hazelden Construction here locally, as well as the County Housing Authority. I would include the county government as our private activity bond issuer as well, and then also social service program with West Mountain Regional Health Alliance. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Land Studio to provide a high-level introduction.
Hi, my name is Doug Pratt with the Land Studio. Julie Pratt and I are the Land Studio in total. Julie's here also. So thank you so much for hosting this evening. Just want to give you a little bit of a background on the project and a little bit of context, Commissioner Waller, I think that might help maybe some of your questions. I use the up arrows on this. Okay. Thanks.
Click the arrow on that far lower right.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, let Doug
I have a Mac. Hence so for a little bit of context, I think the discussion was, how does this reside within the properties? Again, to the west side of this property is the Elks property, which includes the Elks building at the bottom and a manufactured home park above it. Beyond that is another manufactured home park and the motel that resides below it. To the east side is the Raft workforce housing project, and beyond that is Six Canyon. So maybe that gives you a little more context, I guess, to take a look at the overall site from a planning perspective. A little bit closer view. I'm just going to point out some of the landscape. Again, we did meet the landscape requirements of 15%, the open space requirements of 20%, the parking requirements on this site, the landscape within the parking. So we made a pretty big effort to get the landscape plan together for this without asking for site design flexibility on the landscape. That being said, the 8-foot path does reside along the south side of the property. And there is a landscape strip that resides between the 8-foot path and the parking lot itself. Also below the 8-foot path, there's a small strip of landscape area that is currently the brick pavers or yellowish orange concrete that's down there. So we've made an attempt to provide landscape there to provide a buffer between the Highway 6 and 24 and the parking lot. Again, 6 and 24 is the main access to the project on the south side. Donegan Road resides along the north side. The area just south of Donegan Road are the solar panels that we've been talking about. So there are terraced walls that will contain solar panels, as well as solar panels on the roof. Just south of the solar panels, there's dog park and play area for kids that are part of the project. And between the two buildings in the front, between buildings A and B, there's a courtyard that's also a landscape courtyard. And there's also a roof deck that is on it's on the southwest corner of building C. So that roof deck also counts toward our open space areas for the project. It will be an amenity for the folks who live there. Yeah. With that, the landscape plan was developed. There are hydrozones that the city likes us to work with, low water usage plants. We've used all the recommended plants from the city's hydrozone lists and grouped them accordingly. We've got plant materials that are grasses, shrubs, deciduous trees, evergreen trees. We have some seeded grass areas on the project as well. For the most part, the plant materials will be drip irrigated, so not a lot of spray irrigation for the project, so we can conserve water. And there were some questions about water use. So that being said, just a quick overview of the landscape plan. And the open space diagram also, we've met the open space requirements, 20% requirements. So the green areas are the open space areas. We also have some of the, again, the stairway that leads from the sidewalk along the north parking lot up to the northwest. Lets us count that area as open space. So it'll be a stair step sidewalk that allows people to come down from Donegan to the project, and also residents here to get up to Donegan. So it's kind of an amenity. We're hoping it'll be a benefit to the neighborhood. There's not a lot of pass through in all of those areas from Donegan Road. So again, that's part of the open space plan. With that, I think it's on. Get my skills out of here for the computer and let Cohen Esri take over.
Hi there, I'm Kyle. I work as a project manager for Cohen Esri. I'm hoping that this project moves forward so I can visit this lovely city for the next 2 years. Um, So we, Cohen Esri it's a large group. We have people of different specialties, and experiences. And as such, we've done a lot of different types of projects, all within the multifamily housing space. So I'm gonna kind of move quickly through some of them. The point here is each of these projects has a different financing structure, and of course, its own unique design. We're not a cookie cutter company. We go to the planning staff of each town that we work in, and we really try and mold the project to the priorities that existed before we came to be engaged in that town. This is a project that completed last year called Trails at Lehigh, using the 4% bond. It's over in Inglewood, Colorado. It's fully leased up and operating now, and it's a lovely project. This is Panorama Heights, a project we're just completing. These pictures, the lower picture's out of date. It's fully complete. It has similar to Canyon Vista. It has a large solar array. Canyon Vistas will be even a bit larger than this. This is a 200 kilowatt. And we're finding this allows us to deliver a fixed utility rate to the tenants. And it's a net savings for the building to structure operations this way. So yes, again, multiple financing sources. Nick can go into more detail on some of these. He had a heavy hand in structuring these projects. So this is one that's just completing next month. Again, attractive design. This is a supportive housing project for at-risk youth, and it's a partnership with a local nonprofit in Colorado Springs. And again, unique design. This is Paragon Place. This is one we have in process with the city of Denver. This would break ground next year. Again, a diverse set of financing sources in the 9% tax credit, the state credit, 45L and solar. We do use a diversity of sources on every project, and this Canyon Vista is no different. Lost to the Grim. This was a major rehab of a 100-year-old hotel that was effectively a bombed out building that has been restored down in Texarkana. This completed last year. Lewis Lofts. This is part of a two-phase project we did called Neighborhood up in Mankato, Minnesota, where it was a family building and a senior building neighboring each other. Those completed. Lewis Lofts is just completing. Sinclair Flats is fully leased up, completed last year. This is The Landing, a 100-unit senior project up in Madison, Wisconsin, completed last year. Again, fully leased up and operating. Lofts of Ventura, another multifamily, large scale, 196 units. Again, this is just to give a sense of all these projects have been completed in the last 2 years. So we're a busy group. We deliver on our promises, and we do aim to deliver unique projects to each municipality reflect. This is a village park. It's a large scale rehab, about 70% of the way done. They've already begun leasing up one of the buildings. That's a multi-building historic project down in Amarillo. Overlook is another project. It's in Asheville, North Carolina. It is about 30% into construction. It will be a senior building, large scale, in the Blue Mountains. So yes, we're a busy group, a very committed group. We try and be the best partner that we can be, and hold ourselves to a high standard, as we're held to a high standard by each city we work with. So I'll make sure. Okay, so just to say a bit of history of this project, we got this site under contract in October of 2022. We began some design iterations to present to the city. And the city had 2 ordinances that came into effect just before this project, and then in 2021 and 2023, Watkins has gone into detail on those things. So I won't say more other than the city's comprehensive plan and assign certain expectations to the Highway 6 corridor. And so our architect, we brought in KTGY. They're a prolific affordable housing developer. They work on a very high level. They do work all over Colorado and beyond. And they're a group that we all sat down and we really processed the information of what the city was intending to do with affordable housing and locally, and what they wanted to see from a design perspective. So this just a quick history. This was a 6-building plan. It didn't meet the fire requirements. It was difficult to find open space. And it was 135 units. And we aim to provide a lot of amenities. So a lot of times the scale we're working on it reduces our fixed costs as a percentage of the total budget. So we really amenitize these projects. So we were aiming for larger scale, and this was another one, but it again didn't provide the fire access that Glenwood Springs required, and it was a bit. The setback from Donegan was potentially problematic. So this was the access diagram that ended up working for the city with this kind of crazy 8 design. So these buildings got a bit smaller. They went to be 3 tiers of the site. So this became really the working model to start to say now what can we do within this layout. And so we did submit for tax credits in 2023 with the design by KTGY and great work by High Country Civil. And we went in with this proposal. But similarly to the city, CHFA has, aims high for what these sites can provide. They ended up not being awarded. So when we went back and retooled, the project got smaller to meet the expected density that really the city wanted to see, 80 units versus 131. And then we were able to creatively finance what the gap is when your cash flows come down. Obviously, we've reduced the size, but in this case, we went for higher sustainable features. So this large solar array, it reduces costs for the residents. It allows us to have a fixed utility, so reduce our risk of people running up their utility bills. If it's a master meter project, as this is, and we were awarded tax credits on this, and it created more open space on the site. Again, for the amenities. So this is typical amenity package that we do on projects. Community room, a lounge, private storage units was something that was is high priority for folks as active as everyone is in the area. I had a roof deck, fitness room, playground, barbecue area, dog run, dog wash, which is something we're very excited. We do in almost every project for the past couple of years, and people use it. And then, that fixed utility bill, which is just a great thing for families. Really, what we want is for families to stay. There's plenty of reports, case studies on the health outcomes, both financial health and physical health, tied to housing stability. It's a well-established fact that if a family stays in place and is able to raise their kids, even generationally, which looks pretty far out, but this happens, right? People stay generationally in these developments. And it's not that they stay because they can't afford rent somewhere else. Their incomes go up, they pay more rent. That's a good thing for the property. Improves cash flows for the property. So it's not just it's not a revolving door, right? People come in, they don't have a job. They come in, they're stably housed, they find success. And yes, you have a range of outcomes, but the amenities are a big part of what really ground people, because the opportunity to experience a variety of things right there where you live. So we have these community kitchens. We do them in every project, and KTGY can say more about this. I just wanted to attest to the fact that these are buildings we placed in service. We could show you more pictures. We're just grabbing some, and these are representative of what we would do here at Canyon Vista, a gym. So I'll let KTGY speak more to the design, And there, as far as financing sources and income levels, our director, Nick, can speak much more intelligently about that than I can. So if there are questions, please don't hesitate. KTGY, I think, is online. And are you there? I can either flip through, or if you want to screen share. And I blink once for yes. You can give her. You can drive. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Nice. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry, we didn't have an option to unmute for a while, so please bear with me. My name's Anna Subsevic. I'm a project manager for KTGY, and I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. It's spring break, and it's you know how it goes with kiddos. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the architecture of the project, and wanted to sort of talk about how we got to the design that we got to. We primarily wanted the architecture to have a mountain modern vernacular with a mix of sloped and flat roofs to create variety and interest in the roof lines. And the main reason for the flat roofs on the project was to utilize that space to house solar panels and the condensing units of the project. We also wanted to achieve some warmth throughout the site and introduce some wood tones and some stone elements to create some texture and color. Another thing I wanted to address is that we really took the street frontage of Highway 6 seriously, and we wanted the amenities and the buildings to have a presence along the right of way. So that's why you see those 2 3-story buildings in the front with the amenity space in between. I think it's going to create a really nice environment as you're driving by, and a great arrival sequence for the people visiting and the people residing there. One thing that's really unique about the site is that it is very, very steep. I think the 13-foot retaining walls sort of alluded to that. But what that does is it creates this really nice rhythm between the buildings as the front buildings are sort of lower and then the building behind it steps up. But what it also does is our building, or all 3 of our buildings, are significantly lower than the site that's around us. And we can get into that a little bit more later. You can start scrolling through the slides, Kyle, if you're still on the computer. I don't think I have control over it. So here you see the arrival sequence, and then the solar panels in the background where the retaining walls are. One thing that we really did want to do on building C, that's the building we're looking at currently, we know that our neighbor to the west are basically single-story homes, and we wanted to reduce our density on the west. So we created this outdoor space and amenity on the rooftop with this open trellis, so to reduce the scale of the building. If you go to the next slide. Here's the material palette I was talking about. We have some stone to create texture. Fiber cement lap siding is very durable and used throughout the project, as well as some vertical metal panel. And then we introduced that wood tone to create some warmth. Next slide, please. Here's a little highlight of the amenities, and these are just preliminary amenities. We haven't completely worked out what's going on in those spaces, but this is just to give you an idea of the character that we're expecting. Next page. Here's a little bit more in depth. We have been developing the plans in the background and are starting to lay out all these spaces to sort of understand what we're trying to provide to the community. And as we mentioned, a rooftop deck is very important to us. Different lounges and gathering areas and kitchens, as well as dog amenities and bike amenities. Next slide, please. So these are some projects that KTGY has completed recently in the general Denver area that are similar. They're all Chaffa projects that have, you know, the similar type of funding, and we just wanted to show the type of character that we've created. The communal space is really important, and having just open areas for you to collaborate in, or, you know, just get away or work out. Next slide, please. These are some of the exterior amenities, and just to show the character of some of the buildings that we've completed as well. Again, most of these are in Denver, and it shows some of the rooftop deck areas and the character that we're expecting to see, and some of the outdoor amenities as well. Next slide, please. This is our site plan, which you've already seen a couple of times, and I just want to talk about the project is really 80 units with a mix of studios, 1 beds, 2 beds, and 3 beds, many of which have private balconies, but all the units will have that private storage space within the building that's outside of the actual unit footprint. I know that that was very important criteria in the zoning code. Next slide, please. These are just the elevations just to show how we comply with all the different components of the code with recesses and change of material and color. We really did take that very strongly into account as we designed all these buildings. So you can kind of scroll through all the elevations. Again, these are just the floor plans, again, showing layer A and B, which are the 2 smaller buildings in the front that house all the amenities with a shared outdoor amenity space in between. We've had a chance to work on trash sequencing and things like that as we're developing the buildings a little bit further. But you can go to the next slide, and I think it's just floor plans that's left. We haven't fully worked out the solar panels and how many and where they're going to go, but like the idea is that they're going to go on the retaining walls on the north side as well as the rooftops of the buildings. That last slide was the section that shows how we relate to the mobile homes next door to us. So that was really just to emphasize that we really are deep underground compared to the site adjacent to us. So you can kind of see we're about 10'7" above the tallest mobile home, or the mobile home that's directly next to us. I should say that the project does meet the standards of the code, which allows a height of up to 40 feet, and that's to the midpoint of the roof. And we're at around 39'7". So we're right at the requirement, but we do still, we are still under 40 feet. And I think that's all we had from architecture.
Thank you, Hannah. And then in summary, where'd it go? There we go. So in summary, and I'll also try to address some of the questions that I think came up during the staff report discussion. So 80 units in total. So this project, one thing that's really unique about it is the depth of the affordability. So that's the how deeply affordable many of the units in this project are able to serve. So at 20 and 30% AMI, typically in our space, that's a lot of folks who are on SSI disability income, and there's just really no housing option for somebody who's really living on that kind of income. And then we're working with the Garfield County Housing Authority on a lengthy HUD process to finalize approximately 8. It seems like it's going to be 8 project-based vouchers, working on an on-site social service program that will benefit residents, because oftentimes when we have people who are at or below 60% AMI, that's where you really sort of get into low income. People really benefit from having an on-site social worker who can help with resource navigation, SNAP, Medicaid assistance, resume writing, stuff like that. And so regarding the program around local workforce, the way that we will structure that is through a waitlist priority. So when this property initially leases up, we'll do affirmative fair housing marketing activities with local employers. We've reached out to, the hospital, Valley View Medical Center, so on and so forth. And so we'll market directly through, we'll only market here in town, and then we'll market directly through local employers. And then once the property is fully leased up, then we'll operate on a wait list in order to get moved into one of the units when they become available. And it's legal through fair housing for us to provide wait list preferences based on community partnerships. So that's the program for that. And then I think there were also some questions around the 40-year term of the affordability restriction. So that's really governed through the Colorado Housing Finance Authority, or CHAFA, LURA, which stands for a Land Use Restrictive Agreement. And so that is basically a covenant on the property that restricts the operations to this AMI unit mix. Affordable area median income is AMI, just in case that wasn't clear for everybody in the audience. And so at the end of the 40-year covenant period, and oftentimes, quite a bit before, these projects will often go back to CHAFA to get a new allocation of tax credits because obviously these will have to be renovated, at some point in the next 40 years, ideally sooner. And so at that point, when you recapitalize an affordable housing project, you typically go back to CHAFA and restructure the refinance through a bond transaction with CHAFA. So right now, those have been very difficult because right now CHAFA has the imperative from political partners to prioritize new unit production. So that's how we got to be here today. But at some point in the future, I'm sure that, we'll get around to preservation of existing units, and we'll be in that same position in the future. Any other questions that anybody else from our team might be able to answer?
Okay, are you finished with your presentation?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, okay, questions? Okay, Commissioner Houghton.
Regarding the solar, and I guess maybe this is a question for staff as well, but is that something that you've discussed with the utility already? And that's something that the utility is interested in, can use? I know I work with a different utility admittedly, but they're not looking for solar without battery storage, for example. Is that a discussion that's been had?
So Matt Langfors.
Could you please step up to the microphone, please?
So yeah, Matt, this has been a topic. The solar it's preliminary. The design is in preliminary status. We know the size of the system, number of panels, and we work with the group. This will be our third array here in the last couple of years too. Yes, the city has concerns about it. They have an agreement with Nebraska to purchase wind energy. They've worked that out. I can't speak for the city, but as we understand it, they've started to work that out. The battery storage, it's a practical question on the battery storage. We think it has the most merit with EV charging because the life cycle of those batteries is not great. The technology will improve, but at this stage, it's like a massive transformer. It looks like a storage unit almost. So they're very large batteries, and they have a life cycle of about 10 years. They start to trail off after 5 or 7 years in terms of the performance. So that's our kind of concern about it. But we will comply with what the city wants to see. We also think we're going to consume a good deal of the electricity. We have a group that models these things, and so it depends on the time of year and the climate condition, dew point, all these things that determine how much that will consume on site. But a good deal, especially in the winter and summer.
Okay, but that discussion has been started because it sounded like it was potentially, a part of your funding considerations.
Yes. Yeah, they're
okay.
And
So we've also made some commitments to CHAFA around the Zero Energy Home program, ZERH certification for multifamily efficiency, and then also around the solar. And ideally, the stretch goal for this project is to be truly net zero. That's probably not going to be fully achievable on paper based on the how the electrical baseload is actually calculated, assuming some relatively generous electricity consumption, but that's the theory at least. But maybe it's better if it's not fully net zero based on the concerns you sort of expressed there.
But I would say you are net zero emissions regardless, since we buy renewable energy.
I just wanted to clarify here that the utility in question is the city of Glenwood Springs, and our Public Works Director is here tonight if you guys have specific questions to Matt Langhorst on that item. We have been having ongoing conversations with the applicant regarding the solar panels.
Thank you.
So Matt, do you have anything to add to what they said?
Good evening. If you read the Cannon Will Serve letter that we sent them, it is very, very specific with the electric. And we can buy actually electric from them if they're overproducing. We don't like to net meter. They want to have it banked a little bit, so we'll compromise. We can buy the electricity back from them at an avoided cost rate, which Mean gives us, which is less than we would sell it to them, but more than they would get if we just net metered it, because that would be basically a zero return on it. So the Cannon Will Serve letter is very specific. If they change basically anything within this project to make it unaffordable, those kinds of things, it will be revoked. But we will work with them and make the solar panels function. Power in the West is very thin and hard to get. So for them to provide their own power for these buildings is actually a benefit to us. So we're good with it.
Thank you. Other questions? Commissioner Sipperly.
I did have a couple of concerns about the solar panels. I'm noticing that the placement of them is probably going to cause some pretty severe glare on the north side of the buildings, and it might even make some of the amenities intolerable. And I don't know if you might have any solution for that. That's question one. And the second will be, will the stairway in the northwest corner of the lot be usable by the public? As noted, there's a lack of connections between Donegan and Highway 6, and those will now have a bus stop out front of it. So
Yeah, we don't intend on providing any access restrictions to the stairway. Regarding the glare, you're referring to the area, like the dog park and the playground area?
the north side of the lot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there might be some screening solutions. I'll have to defer to Land Studio and Kyle if they have anything they want to add to that.
The solar panels.
Julie Pratt from the Land Studio. The play area and the dog park sit quite a bit lower than the first, that's where our retaining walls will start. So those solar panels will be up above on the retaining walls. So I don't think it'll affect the people who are down on the lower area.
But
I don't know that much about the glare. So
Right.
that has to be a solar panel expert, not me.
Yeah, and I'm assuming you will have someone on board by the time the permit is pulled.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of follow up with that. I mean, I guess some of it depends on what's the angle of how how they're set up, and maybe it's not the people on the ground, but coming off the building on the second or third floor kind of thing. I think that's more the point. Yep.
I might add a little bit to that. Without having any specifics about this project and about these solar panels, this is a common complaint that or concern that you see in all kinds of land use applications. I'll point out that Denver International Airport has lots and lots and lots of solar panels that are pretty near where their runways are. You see these in all kinds of communities, and there's concerns, but it usually doesn't amount to very many complaints because solar panels aren't trying to reflect their sun, they're trying to absorb the energy from the sun.
Having walked many a roof with these.
I need to spec.
Probably a throwaway comment, but having walked many roofs, I've been on probably 7 solar panel projects. I've never noticed the glare coming off of them because it's a photo cell that is meant to absorb that light and convert to energy. But it's something that we'll follow up on.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Connerton.
To follow up on Commissioner Sipperly's stairway question, is that going to have lighting so you can see when you're going down the stairs to Donegan?
I don't believe we've integrated a lighting program into that stairway.
It might be something to think about. And then another thing I just wanted to question on was you were saying as part of the history of this project, it was 131 and you could put 131 units on this piece of property, but you guys acquiesced I take
Well,
it to 80 is,
The 131 units was always dependent on a very, I think we were always, the closest we could ever get on parking was within about 15 spaces or maybe 16 spaces of requesting a variance, which was, I think, just a smidge above. And also this was sort of overlapping with the development moratorium and sort of a little bit different climate around overdevelopment of Glenwood. That is, the benefit of time, I think, is, and also just right sizing this project for, it's a relatively sensitive site, I think got us to where we are here today.
and then you have a lot of amenities, so I take it you have like someone who manages all these
Oh, yeah.
amenities.
We'll have one on-site property manager who will be there 40 hours a week, and we'll have one maintenance technician on the site as well.
And I take it you guys have really good reviews as far as being property managers.
It's hard for me to speak in superlatives and.
That can make all the difference
yeah.
between staying and going.
No,
Okay.
I think that, so we track, and I don't, apologies for just the way I am. I don't speak, I don't do epithets or vague statements, but I can say we specifically track resident retention and our in NPS, which is our Net Promoter Score, so every single interaction that we have with our residents, we send them a survey. Half of them do it, half of them don't. But so we're constantly tracking that in very specific and tangible ways.
And then one last thing. And I'll be done, I
Mhm.
promise. The flat roof thing, is that like a thing in the state of Colorado? To have a flat roof when there's lots of snow?
So oftentimes, so it's in conjunction with the drainage system for the building.
Okay,
And that's really, the flat roof accommodates building systems that cannot be accommodated on a sloped roof. So
Okay.
we've tried to sort of have both as much as possible.
that might be a silly question, but thanks.
Just for clarification on that last one, Glenwood Springs code does allow for flat roofs in city. Just so you know, that's an allowed roof type.
One right up
It's a
here.
thing.
There's
Yeah.
one right up here.
Yeah.
Look above you, right here. Okay. Commissioner Guyman.
We actually had a flat roof and we don't anymore. It's shoveling 4 feet of snow on the flat roof is not fun. Actually, I'm really excited about this project. I work in healthcare and we see a lot of people that would need housing like this. And I especially am excited about, social services being there on site. One of the questions that I have is about the bus stop. I know that Watkins talked about the bus stop perhaps being moved as part of the project. Would that be the property management moving the bus stop, or would that be the city moving the bus stop, or is that RAFTA moving the bus stop?
Ride Glenwood is operated, it's owned by the city, but operated by RAFTA. And so they would, see how would this work? First of all, they'd be giving us permission to put the bus stop on their property. And secondly, I think that the city would be paying for the structure itself and for that to happen. But it would be an appropriate time for this relocation to happen during construction. They're already doing grading, already doing all this work. So that would happen. And then I'm not sure if you're referring to this also, but the return bus stop that I
Yes,
alluded
that
to.
too. Mhm.
So that is separate from this project, but also a good opportunity to try to make our bus system better. The engineering department has looked into eliminating a turn lane that goes to a different property because we don't think it's necessary anymore. That's something we would have to work on through CDOT. But if we did that and RAFT is in favor of that, then it would allow space to put a new bus shelter, the return bus shelter. So you'd have a normal situation where a bus stop that you can get on and a bus stop that you could get off, which is not how it is right now, which is obviously not great.
So the applicant is giving permission to move the bus stop
Onto their property.
to property?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably in the form of an easement, to be specific.
Get more, Connie.
No, that's it.
Okay, Commissioner White.
I kind of just want to echo what you said, Connie. I really appreciate the project and I'm very just intrigued that you guys have different focuses on the residences that you build, specifically the youth housing. I thought that that was amazing. When you guys conceptualize a project, how do you determine what the emphasis is going to be? And how did you determine that for our town?
Yeah, so it's finding the right solution for every site that we identify that we really like and want to move forward with developing. And in particular with Glenwood Springs, the need for workforce housing is relatively apparent. If you spend any time or talk to, restaurant staff, or, coffee shop staff, here in the community. So that really just jumped off the page to us through our process of embedding ourselves, locally for a period of time.
And can you tell us how old is the oldest property that you guys have? And how you guys approach just kind of ongoing maintenance, remodel projects as is needed? Is there kind
Yeah.
of a,
May I ask a follow-up on that? So are you referring to like so we have, half of our portfolio is actually historic preservation,
Okay.
oftentimes buildings that are built in the 1800s.
I guess it would be more specific to a new build.
Yep.
So do you guys have a schedule for when you do remodels as things get dated and
Mhm.
there's wear and tear on property?
Yeah, generally remodel. So interior renovations often happen every couple years or so. It's really dependent on what's going on in the unit. In order to get the unit up to market standards to lease it. Those are often funded through project-based, it's called a replacement reserve for fixtures and carpet, stuff like that, inside the units. Refrigerators often, have to be replaced, stuff like that. So then zooming out, across the whole property, there's the every 5 to 7 years, there's a PCNA, which is the physical condition needs assessment, which is a formal process that we regularly engage with on our long-term, holdings. And then eventually, also ultimately, every 15 years or so, these projects go through a substantial renovation.
Perfect. Anecdotally, I really, really like the brown and black siding much more than the stone.
Is that a question?
That is not a question. That is a comment. I wish that could be on the street facing. It's so good looking.
Frankly,
Anyway,
I do as well. So maybe we can take a look at that.
thank you guys.
Okay. Other questions?
That's emotional.
Okay. So I have a couple of questions. So I guess one question I had is that, so you guys are the applicant and then there's the owner. Are you I know you're not Margaret. So is there Margaret? Hello, Margaret. So are you repping Margaret on this? Is that how this goes? Or what's the relationship?
Yeah, so we're in a partnership. We have a purchase and sale agreement that we've negotiated between ourselves, and we've actually renewed multiple times through the last 3 years. And Margaret is exclusively represented by Sarge Whalen, who is in the corner of the room as well.
Okay. Okay, so the plan, I mean, the partnership is that then, and like we've said, you guys will be managing the project and ownership, however that goes. That's none of my business, but it's.
One thing I neglected to mention is, one thing that does make Cohen Esri a little unique amongst nationwide affordable housing developers is we self-manage all of our communities across the country. We use a regional command structure, so we have a Colorado vice president of property management. We're looking at Colorado specific additions to our team all the time, as we're obviously very committed to the state. And the reason to do that is it does control our risk significantly. We find out about problems a lot faster this way than we do with third-party property management.
Yeah. So how does it work if, let's say something happens to Cohen, I mean, to the company?
I'm sorry
kind
to
of
say,
thing, and
something
how-
already did. So,
Well, I mean, let's say for some reason the company went
yeah.
belly up or something.
Well, so there is a 99% of the ownership interest is controlled by a tax credit investor. So that's typically a CRA bank. The CRA stands for Community Reinvestment Act, which really compels a lot of community banking institutions to be involved in projects like this that serve low to moderate income households. And so I don't know if I'm at liberty to say what bank it's going to be, but we're pretty close to finalizing that at this point, and they're a familiar face. And so they will be the actual owner, the 99% owner, up until the year 15 disposition. So there's that's when the project is no longer generating new tax credits. And we can get as far into these weeds as you guys are interested.
No, I think you're,
But
the weeds are good.
in the event that, Mr. Esri, by the way, lives in Edwards, just down the highway. And so the company is becoming increasingly owned by a staff partnership of leadership staff that are continuing to, guide it toward the future.
Okay, you might as well stay up there. I have a couple other questions. So on the lighting, you heard me ask that to Watkins, and I don't know, I used to be a facilities guy for a college, and so we had, occupancy sensors for lighting to keep it down low unless, from a safety perspective and all that. I mean, do you do any things more advanced? I mean, I'm talking about doing something more advanced than what our code says, but.
Yeah, so I like the idea of the dimmers, and I think that's something that we could commit to. I just don't know if we can use them. That's really going to be a life safety question, which often gets determined by the architects, calculated by, people a lot smarter than myself.
Okay, and so how are the rent increases? I mean, I know that's probably all regulated, the whole thing, but just kind of for my own interest, what is that?
Yeah, so every April, HUD comes out with new income limits, through which they also provide new rent limits every year. So you may often hear people who have lived in affordable housing for a long time, complaints that their rent has gone up $75 or $100 or so, but they're really, a quarter or even less of market-based, rent increases that other properties are experiencing. These properties do have to, so first of all, we typically don't provide the full statutory rent increase for existing residents. That goes to a retention question. But then when we have a new unit or a new resident moving into a unit that has turned over, that's when the rents all the way go up to the new maximum allowable for that year when they take possession. And the reason it has to do that is because our expenses are going up as well. I'll tell you right now that you cannot hire a property manager in Colorado making less than $70K. Used to be a $50,000 position. And so just right there, expenses have gone up about 25%.
So is it consistent with, I know Garfield County, like all the counties in Colorado, put out their annual AMI, here's what that is for, studios on up from there. Are you consistent with that, or?
Everyone but Aspen does it the same way.
Well, we're not Aspen, but, so I mean, are you consistent with how that comes out? Is that how your rents increase accordingly?
Yes.
Thank you. And then one question that I was thinking, so on the grade, and I know there's big change in the grade, but it seems like the grade is fairly constant until you get to the back hill where the stairs are and maybe goes up some, but is it,
About 6 to 10% across the
6 to
whole site.
10%? So that second or building C or 3 or whatever it is back there is maybe 4 feet higher than something like that. Anyway, I was just trying to.
Probably more than that, honestly. If for anything really technical, you want to talk to Kyle.
Well, I was gonna say, our civil engineer is here. His wheels are probably turning a lot high power PMs right now. He's really working this out, you know, to the foot, right, to every square foot. So anyway, the height, what I would want to say is the site, we also have an accessibility consultant. We use them across the country. They're fantastic. And so one of the benefits of this site is accessibility impaired, mobility impaired person.
Right.
Could travel the entire site.
Right.
So much of that makeup of grade has been pushed to the north for that reason. Both the drive aisles as well, but I think the sidewalks are 6% plus.
Okay. And one thing on the lighting that I'd like to kind of reiterate, what was, there's a question about it, but I would like to make a request, would be that, there's some sort of low lighting on those back stairs or something, because I think people will be using it. And if that is open, for the public to go through from 6 and 24 up to Donegan, which saves a lot of time, from going up that way. It seems like a safety thing to do. And anyway.
Yeah, at Red Rocks, they had some similar unlit stair conditions. They recently just added.
And that's scary there.
Yeah.
Because Carolyn was telling me that that's scary. And then one kind of just from a look feel, architectures or, when you scrolled through the building elevations, they look horrible, but when you look at your renderings are awesome. The renderings are really good. So I'm assuming that what's in your rendering is really, it's the same material, color palette, all of that sort of thing that's on the rendering, that's in the architecturals, and awful was the wrong word. It's hard to get a feel for what that is by looking at that versus you look at the renderings and you can really get a feel for the property, for the screening and all of that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, the two-dimensional elevations are always,
It's
challenging.
hard.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, okay, I think that's all of my questions. Any other questions anyone has? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now we'll take comments from the public. And okay, yeah, one thing I'd like to do before we start this is, and there'll be a timer that'll come up here. So each person has 3 minutes to kind of go through, and if you could state your name and your address where where you live here, and we thank you very much for being here.
You ready?
Yep.
So my name is Monica Wolney. I own the Hanging Lake Inn next to the property that's next to the Elks, next to the property that's being built. I have no objection to this property being built. I'm actually happy for the McPhersons finally getting out of this town and moving on. My only problem is in regards to Hanlon was stating that it is not a concern of P&Z today in regards to H2O, meaning water. Well, there is a signed agreement from which I kind of do not agree with. And I'm gonna pass this out.
You can pass that out when you talk.
Oh, great. So there's 2 copies. There's one here and then so the first copy is the letter that everyone got.
Why don't you start over again, Monica, now
sorry.
that you're at the microphone.
The first letter is the letter that Langhurst, I guess, wrote, stating the purpose of this letter is to provide confirmation that the city of Glenwood Springs will serve your parcel of land at 51993 and 52008 with the amount of acres in West Glenwood with domestic water. If you read the agreement with Mitchell Cooper and the city of Glenwood Springs, that dates back to 1985, and you flip back to the 4th page, it states the company, meaning Mitchell Cooper, agrees that it will not use its water rights, the city water rights, or the supplement supply of the city provided for hereon to serve users or customers outside the company's service area without the prior written consent of the city. The city agrees it will not provide water service to the company's shareholder, meaning Mitchell Cooper shareholders, or within the company's service area without the prior written consent of the company. We at Mitchell Cooper did not get any written notification or anything in regards to this water or for city from the owners that are purchasing this in regards to water. The city is breaching contract if they feel that they can give water to this property. We are in a lawsuit with them. And if the new owners decide that they want to purchase this property, they will be implemented into this lawsuit as well. So, and included into this lawsuit. Other than that, I have nothing to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Monica. Okay, other people from the, yes. Please give your name and your address.
My name's Art Rothman. I live at 721 County Road 170, outside of Carbondale. I'm president of the Mitchell Cooper Water System, so I'm representing them here. I also agree, I'm not opposed to this project. I am also very happy for the McPhersons if this happens. But Carl had also stated earlier that this is not under your purview since it's a kind of a separate issue. And I disagree. I saw a direct conflict on what Watkins presented of the comp plan, saying that this type of development has to have all its utilities in place before it can move ahead. So I think it's imperative on you that you consider this your responsibility to consider them, because the water, and Carl also said, it could turn into a problem later for the developer, which is fair enough. But I think at this point, this commission needs to consider that this, even though it's a worthy project, doesn't have its utilities in place, which the comp plan demands. So I'm requesting that you deny this tonight and postpone it and give us a chance to talk with the developer and perhaps directly with city representatives, which we've been trying for a long time, has gone nowhere. And the city's basic plan is to just pretend the contract doesn't exist or that it's not valid. This contract was signed by a city mayor, approved by a city council, and suddenly it's not considered valid by those same entities right now that are in charge of things. So we're requesting that you do not move on this today. So do you have any questions as to our position?
Hey, thank you very much, Don. Okay, other people from the public? Is there anyone online? I see there's, oh, we have another person. Yep.
My name is Frankie Straight and I live in West Glenwood on Gamba. And my concern is absolutely water from the city, and it's absolutely sewer. And you have stated, or they have stated, that the sewer is in place. And I'm asking, is that true? Is the sewer in place? And is the water in place?
Okay,
Okay.
thank you very much. Other comments from from citizens? Is there anyone online, Watkins? Okay. Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, I'm going to close the public comment. Thank you very much. So I guess as we move on, I'll have any comments from,
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's a little difficult for me because the representatives that you just saw from the board of Mitchell Cooper are represented by an attorney in a lawsuit instituted against the city. And so I have certain limitations underneath the rules of professional conduct in how I engage with them and engage with those subject matter because as far as I know, their attorney is unaware that they were providing testimony tonight and certainly didn't contact our office. There are some rules that we just have to, like, I can't engage unless I've gotten permission from their attorney. So I apologize for that. What I will say, So from the standpoint of the decision-making process, you're making a recommendation tonight to the Glenwood Springs City Council. This project is not subject to that litigation at the moment. There are no court orders in place that prevent this application from moving forward for your review at this time. You have a can and will serve letter on electric, on sewer from West Glenwood Sewer, and from the city of Glenwood Springs on water. Those are what's required by code. You have that in front of you. And so my recommendation to you tonight is that this is not the forum to litigate a contract dispute. That is for the ongoing litigation that was filed against the city about a year and a half ago. That's the appropriate venue for that to play out.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. So I think that now we bring this back to the commission for questions, comments, motion. Commissioner Connerton.
Okay. I too also really appreciate this project. I'd like to make a motion to approve action item 1, major site architectural plan for development of a 80-unit multifamily residential building. I am going to read the suggested findings. There's only 7, so I'm just going to read them out loud. The architectural plan is consistent with general purpose and intent of the code. The site architectural plan is consistent with dimensional design development and all other standards of this code. The site architectural plan is not in conflict with precedent land use approvals. The site architectural plan is consistent with the comprehensive plan and other adopted city policies and plans, including the strategic housing plan update. Number 5, the flexibility request does not harm the public health, safety, or welfare. Number 6, the flexibility requested in general conformance with the comprehensive plan and with the stated purpose and intent of the code, including the specific regulation for which the flexibility is sought. And number 7, the flexibility requested will not violate building or fire code requirements, including the suggested conditions 1 through 12. And Watkins, would you please pull up number 13? Including number 13, a building permit for the project will not be issued until a minor subdivision has been finalized that consolidates the 3 existing parcels.
Okay, that was good. Okay, Commissioner Sipperly.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Okay, now let's have some discussion on this. Okay, well, I'll throw something out then on the from the utilities being in place, so we heard the comment and this was all brand new to us. So, it wasn't part of our package or whatnot. So, but we are, from my perspective, we're a referring group. I mean, whether we approve, deny, or continue, we're just a referring group. It goes to council is where that goes. So anyway, that being said, I'll just kind of put that out there. Commissioner Connerton.
Yeah, I mean, as the part of the conditions, the applicant has to comply with all of those regulations, including Public Works Department, Fire Department, and Engineering. So I think that encompasses what the public brought to us, and I feel comfortable with the conditions as they are.
Okay.
That's just a comment, I guess.
No,
That's
this
what we're
is
doing.
discussion. That's so that's good.
Yeah.
No, it's great. That's what we're doing. Hey, Commissioner Guyman.
I know last time we talked about how we're just a recommended body, but I also feel like it kind of like demeans what we do. I feel like we're important too,
Exactly.
and I do feel uneasy that this came up. And I did breeze through some of the highlighted areas, so I just don't understand our role in making sure that this property has water, because it feels like it's a lot of pieces to move for them not to have a legal water source.
Not really. You have a Canon will serve letter from the city of Glenwood Springs.
Valid contract.
And that is being litigated.
What you want, Hamlin.
I'm gonna respectfully ask that you direct the audience not to comment.
Okay. Okay, right now, this conversation is with the commission and then questions to staff.
So
Thank you.
that's being litigated right now. That could have an impact on this decision at some later date. It doesn't bear on whether or not you should approve or deny this application right now. You are not a court sitting with empowered to decide whether or not a contract is valid and all the circumstances, which I'm not going to go through all of that background with you guys. Because there again, it is being litigated across the lawn here over in the 9th JD. So that's where that will get determined at.
Just feels uncomfortable to, I mean, I'm really excited about this project. Again, like I said, I mean, it's a really important project for our community and our citizens. This is a portion of the population that deserves to have nice housing. So I am 100% for that. But it feels like the water issue is a really big deal, and it like to give promise to the owner and the applicants when that's not nailed down, feels like a lot of wasted resources to me.
Okay. Thanks, Connie. Commissioner Connerton.
I mean, we are a recommending body. I don't feel demeaned, but because I think we bring a lot of perspectives from a lot of different places, I think that it's good for us to, I think the city council takes everything we have to say, and, tries to apply it as well as they can. I also think that, and I appreciate, you coming and making those comments, but it's also really difficult to put us in this position, in a position, anyone could come up and say, hey, there's a litigation on the trailer next door to this. And here's everything that we have to say about that. Like this, we're not a court. And this isn't, I don't feel like it's an appropriate place really to, say that there's something amiss and for us to just go, oh, wait a minute. I trust city staff did their due diligence as well as the engineering department, we do rely on them quite a bit. So that's just, I guess it's more comments, but.
Okay. Commissioner White.
I was just going to echo that. We are provided a packet from the experts in the fields in our city. And we have to trust that they're doing their due diligence, like Amy said. And so, again, though we appreciate the comments, we have to trust the actual facts that have been provided and the materials that we've been given. So.
Okay, so the
We call it
public.
recess, clear the room, give it 5 minutes, 10 minutes and come back.
Shareholders that need an answer on.
I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, you can't, it doesn't, public comment is closed at this time.
Yeah, this has been going around. You guys are hurting other residents in West Glenwood. This is
Okay.
not just this
I
project.
respectfully ask for a recess.
Okay.
Let's clear. This is not
Oh.
the hearing this is not the decision. This is not their hearing for their issue is across the lawn in court.
No, it's right here too. There's a.
Okay, we're gonna call for a recess, for a 10-minute recess to kind of get through it, because public comment is closed. And, yeah, I guess we need to clear the room. Here's what we're doing.
Hope you guys do the right thing. Instead of pushing it back.
That means everybody, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's what, so definitely look at the comment.
Continue to try. You're probably not gonna get any more. You have them up on the table, your other options. While they're yelling. Unless they're out on a call.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's normally staff. Staff. City council. So if you guys want to do that, that would be my suggestion. Come back on.
So basically.
I love these kids. That's fair. Right now. I'm gonna try to get people.
Right?
I mean, yeah, it's okay. I think that's. I mean, I think that was.
So you're gonna do it.
We're gonna continue.
We're gonna gavel in.
Yes. The conflict.
Yeah, grab,
I know this is March Madness.
Yeah.
A baller. Exactly. Spot on. Okay. Where's your?
we're waiting for our.
Turn around. Come on.
Wow.
You watch
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Did you watch the CSU game?
Yeah.
One, was it the buzzer? It was so-
Yeah, that was a tough one because Fosnot is, you know, in a lot of Maryland.
Where's he going? Go back to Minnesota.
Yeah.
Minnesota.
Yeah, he's like all over it this year. He's like trying to hit every game. Yeah, no, it's a huge Maryland fan.
Yeah.
So he was trying, he
That was
went
the hard
out, stood out and watched him play, and then, you know, then they won. And so now he's like, wherever it is, Michigan, is that where they're playing? Fosnot. Coach?
Okay, I want to bring the meeting back to order here. So people that I asked to clear the room, could you please clear the room? Okay,
Mr. Chair, I think if the audience can be respectful and you guys can finish your deliberation and vote, I think it's fine.
otherwise we'll shut it down.
Otherwise, we can shut it down.
Okay. Okay, any more comments on the motion that's on the table? Okay, well, so this is for action number one. Motion by Commissioner Connerton, seconded by Commissioner Cowan. I think.
I think was
Oh,
me.
by Commissioner Sipperly. Okay, let's call the question. Oh. I forgot. No, I didn't.
Push your button.
I can't now. Okay. I'm a yes.
The motion passes with 5 yeses, 1 abstention, and 1 no vote by Connie Guyman. Or did you abstain? Okay.
Mine says not voted, but I pushed the wrong button.
Yes.
Yes. Okay,
I would just clarify for the record that in Glenwood, an abstention is a yes.
yeah,
There is
yeah,
no,
yeah, the
abstention.
abstention was, no, there was an abstention, and then the no was, for mine was a yes.
So the motion does pass, I would say 7 to, I would say unanimously. You have verbalized your vote, so it has passed unanimously.
Okay, so action 2 on the 1041 review. Is there a motion? Commissioner Connerton.
Yeah. Okay. For action item number 2 on the 1041 review, for the development of an 80-unit multifamily residential building in area of state interest, I recommend approval. And with the following findings and conditions as recommended under action item number 1, which I read the first suggested findings. Well, actually, no, I didn't. There's 22 findings. And with the suggested condition that the staff recommends the same condition of approval for the 1041 review as for the major site architectural plan, because the 2 action items relate to the same project.
Okay, we
I
have
didn't do all
a,
22.
okay, we have a motion on the floor, Commissioner Cowan.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Commissioner Cowan. Discussion. Commissioner Guyman.
I guess my question is, how is the 1041 different than what we just, I know what a 1041 is, but did we have a discussion about the state interest? Or is it just,
I believe for clarification, I think, you were run through the list of, findings that had to be determined
for the state
essentially by adopting the same conditions. You're saying that really the 1041, it's met all of those requirements.
oh, they're rolled all into one?
Right, it's rolled into one.
Okay.
Yeah. We were just discussing, we're gonna separate those out more clearly. This is only the second or third 1041 we've done, so we're still dialing in how we present those conditions.
Connie, turn your mic on. She got cut off. Okay, you good? Okay, Commissioner Sipperly.
I'm just noticing under, well, I guess that was action item 1, suggested conditions. It did also reference a photometric plan. And I didn't know if we should revisit that, or will it, after the fact, analysis and measurement be fine? I didn't notice that in the conditions.
Yeah, photometric plan for a major site and architectural plan is actually a requirement of submittal, so slightly different than the last presentation that we
Okay.
heard. Normally, we don't require that until later on, and just that they will comply with the lighting standards of their district.
Okay, and I'm presuming we're using more standardized fixtures. That'll be a lot easier than trying to measure all those custom fixtures from action or from number 1. So thank you for that.
Okay, and for me, the 1041, the reason that is a 1041 is because it's by 6 and 24.
That's correct.
I mean, that was the whole reasoning, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, other comments or questions? Seeing none, let's call the question.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll move on to, well, let's talk about item C. It's 9 o'clock. I think, Hannah, do you think we should push this off to next month? Is that?
Yes, thank you for asking about that. This was something for your information and doesn't have any action items associated with it. And our upcoming April meeting doesn't have any applications, so that's probably a very opportune moment to add some items such as this one for your agenda.
Do we need to continue it?
There's no action item associated with it, but you could just say that we're going to hold that item at the next meeting.
Okay, I'll just say that we're gonna push that to next meeting because it's more like a information training kind of thing for us to go through. Okay. That sounds good. Okay, so now we'll move on to commissioner comments. We'll start down here with Commissioner Connerton.
Yeah, this was a great discussion this evening, and thanks so much, you guys, for the packets that you provided us, because I thought it was like very comprehensive and it was really easy for me to make clear decisions. You know, these particular situations can be, you know, have a lot of emotion behind them, but again, we do recommend things to city council and city council can take it from here.
Thank you very much. And you know, I'd like to request that the people in the back move their conversations out to the hallway. Thank you. Thank you. Adios.
So much.
Okay, Commissioner Cowan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, staff. Yeah, just a great product that we saw tonight, I think was, you know, a culmination of, at least in the couple of years that I've been up here, it's nice to see several things that we have worked on, that we've seen staff muddle through, and the community engage on, kind of bear fruit in a project like this. So it's a pretty cool thing to see. As I was reading this, trying to digest these tax credits and things, would it be possible, we don't need to dive into below the 30,000 foot level, but would it be possible to get a primer on what a tax credit financing landscape looks like at some point?
Yeah, not right now.
Not right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let me do that off my cuff. No, I think we can. You know, we've had two things come up. One was a really interesting discussion about economic incentives, tax incentives at council, that I think would be, if we could talk, that it was a representative from Miller Weingarten or Miller Realty, just did a really nice job of describing how like the commercial world works and incentive, you know, those kinds of things. It was just good information. I think you heard a lot of pieces of that in the presentation tonight, and it struck me, it was another one of those that I heard that and I was like, you know, pulling this information together in a more a shorter, more cohesive form for you guys might be super helpful. So I on both those fronts, I felt like we heard good information. It was a little harder tonight to digest it in the context of everything, but absolutely.
Cool. Great. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Commissioner Sipperly.
I also agree that this is exactly the kind of project that we've been engineering.
You know, I'm going to ask you guys not to talk about the project that you just made a decision on because
It's only a recommendation.
yeah.
Okay. What else?
He needs a drink.
No, it's.
I know we're not.
I know. I'm trying to protect the record.
Yes.
It's super important that we do that.
Yes.
It's not like there is a reason why I ask you guys to do certain things. And that's why I don't want us to drift into having a public conversation about an application that you already rendered a decision and everybody has left.
Yes. Well, I appreciate the food from Jaffa and the chocolate for dessert. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Wake. Commissioner Houghton. Commissioner Guyman.
I just wanted to clarify for Hannah's sake that I was saying that we actually do really good things when I said that we're not just a recommendation body. We have a lot of other important decisions to make as a new person.
I agree. Spot on.
So that wasn't that, I was,
No,
I was,
that
I
was
was
good.
trying to say we do good stuff.
That was good.
Opposite, Hannah. But thank you.
And
It
that
was a
was
really
for
great
all of us,
discussion.
Not just for Hannah, that was making.
Yeah. And I'm sure all of the tourists will be really excited about the new signage too, because I see a lot of lost tourists around spring. Thank you.
Okay, I got a couple comments other than I'm a happy guy. But is, the lighting code, I'd like to put that in the bin, in the code bin.
Yeah, you do.
So I don't know how that works, but,
Dark
Okay.
sky compliance.
and then what happened with the duplex, triplex? Can I ask that question?
They got continued.
Oh, so no.
Yeah, they, there was some concern because I don't think when they were pushing so hard to get it on, they realized that the mayor was gonna be gone, and so they only had 6, not 7. And it was a discussion that they really wanted to have 7 there, I mean, it's an important issue. She definitely has some views on it, and so that was really, I think, when they realized that, they were like, you know what, we have another meeting we can do that at with the full panel, this full panel of council, so.
So that will be on the April 3rd council agenda.
Oh, that's on the April 3rd. When does the new council get sworn in?
They get sworn in on the 17th. And so it would be after, the way that usually works is after the consent agenda, because they didn't sit for any of those items. Consent is typically second reading on ordinances and things like that. So it's better to have them sit. We take a break. They do their farewell speeches. We throw cake at them. And they exit, we seat the new council. That council will elect a mayor and a mayor pro tem and then go on with the night's business. The reason, even though the election, just so you know, a little geeky, but just the reason why we don't seat the 2 days after the election, because obviously the election is on the first Tuesday and then we have a meeting the first Thursday underneath the overseas ballot requirements, the Unicaba requirements. We can't certify the election until 7 days after the election. So we don't have, even though
Okay.
realistically the numbers won't change, probably we can't officially certify until after that first meeting. So it falls on the second.
Okay. Okay. I don't have anything else. So, Director.
Thank you. And first off, I would say great discussion tonight. And thank you for the clarification, Commissioner Gabriel, because I will reiterate what she was getting at in that Planning and Zoning Commission really is an integral part of these processes, because you do the most heavy lifting on when it comes to our code requirements. You're considered the experts on our development code, and you will talk at much longer length with these items than council normally gets to, and they trust your opinion that you have gone to great lengths to arrive at your recommendation. So I will applaud you for making thoughtful conversation tonight and discussion in light of some interesting environmental factors. So I appreciate your professionalism as you view these sometimes contentious planning projects. And as we enter into a new era where you're not an authority approving as many units as you once did, but the work is no less important. So I'll just start off with that. For April, we actually do not have any active applications. So as I mentioned, I think that's a great opportunity for us to provide updates on things that you've mentioned, some education pieces, and get back to some, such as the lighting code of what we may be able to arrive at something where we're looking at some specificity of what we might change there. So I hope to see you all at the April meeting, and we'll put that out, what's going to be on that. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Glad you enjoyed the food.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I will adjourn the meeting.
I know.